This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, Rhonda, can you mute yourself, please?
It's like a groupie A of a craft sale. It's up here.
Okay.
Here you go.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
You know what? Why don't you just leave it the way it is? It's okay. Yeah, it's fine. It'll be fine. We'll figure it out next time.
Okay, we will reconvene the regular meeting, and I would like to. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Fantastic. Welcome, everyone. Just a couple housekeeping items. If you have a phone, please put it on mute. If you are attending the meeting via the GoToMeeting, via online, if you just make sure your line is mute until you're called upon, I would appreciate it. With that, we are going to start with our the resolution. We'll do our election of officers. So at this time, I would like to open up nominations, and I would like to start with nominating Flavia Walsh for the position of chairman.
And I would nominate Bob Geppert.
We need a second. We do them individually, or?
No, you don't need a second nomination.
Okay, yeah, okay, sorry. Go ahead, sorry.
Bob Geppert as chairman.
So it'd be appropriate now to take a vote, whether it be Mrs. Walsh or Captain.
So, and how do we just do it individually?
You can all just take one vote, you know, all in favor of having
Okay.
Mrs. Walsh as chairman, first and she's nominated. There's one way to do it.
Okay.
Chelsea, you have a different approach?
That's good.
Okay.
That's fine.
So I will call the first vote. All in favor of Flavia Walsh for chairman, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
3. And those in favor of Bob Geppert for chairman, say aye.
Aye.
That's 2. So that is 3-2. Flavia will take chair. Nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Tinkle.
Any additional? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Congratulations to Chairman Flavia Walsh, and Supervisor Tinkle retains his chair as vice. So with that being said.
Well, what I would suggest then, that with regards to resolution 2023-08, we have other spaces we need to fill.
Oh, yes, we do. That's right. Yeah.
So section 1, the chairperson would be Flavia Walsh. Section 1, section 2 would be Tinkle. All board members not appointed to other positions are assistant secretaries, and secretary, Chelsea, would be you. I believe that would be. So that section 6 would be Chelsea. Treasurer, is that Stephen?
Stephen Bloom.
Yes.
Stephen Bloom. Assistant treasurer, is that Laura?
Yep.
Okay. And all other board members, supervisors, Geppert, Pankow, would be assistant secretary.
And Banks.
And Banks.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was going to.
Why don't we swap?
And so,
Just sit
what would be,
there.
what would
Now,
be,
so maybe that.
You're
Next
okay with
one.
that?
Yeah,
good.
that
what would be appropriate then? If the board-
I just go to your left, not your right.
What would be appropriate?
We'll
then
still be neighbors.
For the board to adopt resolution 2023-08 with the officers as outlined.
So moved.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So you take control.
All right, so we went the third, the fourth, which is the approval of the final agenda. Does anybody have any edits?
No.
Motion. Go ahead.
Haven't done it in a while. Motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, then number 5, public comment. Chelsea, what do we have?
We have one request for public comment. It's Rod Senior regarding capital spending. Reminder, we have a 3-minute limit.
So Tony, just from our closure session, you want to, we're
Yeah, I
going to,
guess it's a question for the board before or after before Mr. Senior makes a comment, I'm sorry. Good to see you, Rod. The board would like to just briefly amend the agenda, one action item from the council aspect.
Okay, so under number 4.
Yes. As a follow-up to the closed door session, we are asking for authorization for the litigation team to prepare an offer of judgment to the defendant Fort Line.
yeah, so moved.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr.
All right.
Thank you, Lenore.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Senior.
It's a pleasure. Good afternoon, fellow residents and the board, Carol, and congratulations, Flavia.
Thank you.
I'm here to try and change your mindset as we go forward on capital spending and methodology. I don't want to sound like a broken record, so I'm kind of breathing new life into what I'm trying to say here. There's two distinct methodologies. I've got an MBA in finance. I know what I'm doing on that particular field. I'm not an engineer, but I am a finance and accounting guy. One method is to spend and collect. The other method is to collect and spend. And with this bond option that you've started down, that's a spend and collect, which is a credit card mentality. Spend it now, collect later. Now, this bond option is a license to spend $48 million in the next 10 years by this board and future boards. That is a huge undertaking. And yes, Ed, I agree with you. We're paying for a lot of neglect over a lot of years with this 48 million. I get that. But I do think we've got to be careful. That's a massive amount of money we're going to saddle with the community with. You've got past the public hearing on the bond validation, which is all you're required to do legally, I understand. You can then proceed forward without any resident vote and go and start burning through this money. It's a dangerous path to take. In my opinion, it's going to be detrimental to property values because it's hidden inside the non-ad valorem property taxes. A lot of residents don't even know that. It's in addition to property values being possibly damaged by this, that kind of runs counter to why you're spending it, because you're trying to spend it to improve things, but it will actually start to eat into the property tax itself to an extent that I think is unacceptable to the residents. It also includes a lot of professional hangers-on, bond counsel, 1.5% bond underwriters taking 700-800 grand out of our pockets. It includes the percentage that interest that the bond will accrue. So I don't like it. I think there's another way to go. You started on this next year with the capital reserve study. Apples with apples. You don't compare 10 years of spending with one version versus another. You compare 30 years of collecting, one versus the other. This reserve study should be done over 25 years, not 10 years. Build reserves wisely and use the annual resident contribution rather than going at $48 million and burning through it in 10 years. We can't get out of that. Then we're saddled with it, and the next generation and the one after that. If we all contributed $300 a year on a reserve, that's 6,000 homes. That's 1.8 million bucks per year for 25 years. That's $45 million. And you can do it by collecting $300 a year without any professional hangers-on, no bond underwriters, no percentage interest. It's just $300. I've got my tax bill here, $4,500, my property tax. $300 on that is 7%. It's affordable. The homeowners.
Rod, I'm gonna ask you to just wrap it up.
I will do. Thank you, Flavia. In comparison with the homeowners association that Ed and I are on the board, we pay $160 contribution a year to capital reserves as a percentage of the $2,000 dues we pay, which is 8%. That's pretty similar to what I'm suggesting. I really would like you to go down the road of collect first and spend later. And if you haven't got it, you can't spend it. That's what we teach our kids.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who else do we have?
No one else. No one else in the room asked to speak. There's no one online that asked to speak, and I'm not aware of any emails or faxes requesting to speak.
All right. So the next item will be local achievements and recognitions. Do we have anybody that would like to recognize?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I want to recognize, and you're going to have to help. Well, I'll do it in reverse order. I want to just say happy birthday to Chelsea for 21 today. That's fantastic. And in our last President's Council meeting, there was a recognition for her hard work. It was Elle Harris, and was there another? Or was it just Elle? I think it was just Elle. So Elle's not here today.
It's
but
from Hampton Park.
Yeah, from Hampton Park. So I just wanted to say on the record, just thank you to Elle for all her hard work that she does on a daily basis. I also just want to recognize staff and Tim and everyone that's been helping out in preparation of the Winterfest that will be happening this Saturday. I'm so excited because we haven't done this in a couple of years, and it has really been a big event for us. And I know Tim's running around and staff's running around, and they'll have even more running around to do before the end of the weekend. So I just want to recognize all their hard work. So that's all that I have.
Thank you. Anybody else? We're good? All right. So advisory committees and items and reports.
We did not receive any from PPAC or Stony Brook.
Okay. So then number 8, approval of minutes.
I didn't see any minutes in the board book.
We did not receive them in time. So
Okay.
you'll have them at your next
It's
meeting.
going to be
Check
super
that one
fast. At 5:05, I'll be out of here. All right. Consent agenda items. So item A, ratification of the Facilitron agreement with the rental and GSCDD properties.
We'll do all.
Oh, you want to do all of this?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody want to pull anything?
Well, I have a question about the first one. Yeah. Facilitron, as I understand this, will be incurring the cost of $10,000 a year to.
Essentially, it's a 10% charge, but we will be doing a pass through to the end user. So the person renting our facilities, that they will have that service fee.
Okay, but we could, okay, if we kept the system we had, which has been working for X number of years, and we want to bump it up something, then that's additional revenue. What I'm suggesting in the environment, and to what, Mr. Senior just said, we keep adding things that cost money. To me, it's not really immaterial whether I pay it or somebody else is paying it. We're spending more money for something than we have to right now. And we're still going to be handled, the district's still going to be providing all the information about available rentals, for the pavilions, the boardroom soccer. I'm not quite sure why. Well, that's what it says in the motion. The district will provide the information of available renters.
Yes, we will provide the amenities that are available, so that way they can set up our website, just like Lee County uses for all of their rental facilities. The school uses it as well. We have to help in that first implementation and push, but then from beyond that, Facilitron manages and handles everything. The cancellation, the collection of revenue, the checking of insurance.
Still a cost.
Yes.
They're not doing it for free.
Correct.
We're currently getting it, I hate to say for free, but we're
Well,
getting it without cost.
Well, currently we're paying staff, so I think it's trying to alleviate admin from doing those duties.
Are we cutting a staff position?
I'm sorry?
Are we going to cut a staff position?
No, it's going to alleviate her to do
We
other
didn't save
duties.
anything. And we're not saving anything.
Well, but we may need to hire somebody else to do additional duties, which we wouldn't
Talk
do
about
that.
when that comes up. Okay.
And then,
Madam Chair.
yes.
Just what is the value that we're getting here? Can you just, maybe that's what we're not getting
So,
understanding.
right
What is
now-
the value of using a Facilitron versus having a staff member do this, which is to Bob's point, they have been conducting for years and years.
Yep. So ultimately, this is end user interface. So if you wanted to rent a pavilion, you could go onto the website and see what was available and the dates and times that it was available, see a cost, and have a turnkey program and rent it right there on the spot. Whereas right now, if you contacted and you wanted to rent a pavilion, you would have to email customer care or talk to Georgia, coordinate. We'd have to put together an invoice. We would have to send you the invoice. We would have to collect payment, process payment, and then coordinate the availability. And same thing goes with this room.
So my question is, to me on the surface, there's a potential for additional revenue to be incurred because it's easier, but do we have any way to enforce it? That's my problem is, yes, we'll have an easier system to use. However, people don't typically rent the fields. They don't, unless you're league, we've got tons of use out there today where people just show up and they start using. People are at the pavilion, they have birthday parties, and I don't think it's always being rented. Unless there's the ability to
Enforce.
enforce and govern it, then we're basically just have an easier system for people not to use. Because I do see there's a revenue opportunity there, but then there has to be enforcement.
Well,
So
you're going to just have to guesstimate and prorate each of the amenities that would generate revenue and come up with a number that they got to pay to try to make this thing status quo.
Yeah.
To where we have no cost here. The outsiders that use them pay for it.
And Chelsea, when I spoke with you last, it was at $100,000.
That's the threshold that
Okay.
is required.
So as of right now, we have flag, soccer.
Mhm.
We have now the rental room here that's on the schedule fee, right?
Yes.
Nothing for the pool, right?
Nothing.
Soccer, the soccer.
wait, hold on. So, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I just,
Yeah.
so all of our leagues would go through Facilitron?
Yes. And any cancellations, any rain events, everything.
So what happens if there's an actual, but that's just for the contract. And what if there's a problem with the facility? Sprinklers go off, lights don't work.
That Facilitron handles that. The end user would contact Facilitron. They would say, this isn't available, this wasn't available.
So they would have somebody come out at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at night if there was an
No,
issue?
we wouldn't do that now, right now.
What is our total rentals right now
last
that
year.
we handle? We handle.
I think we were close to $80,000.
So we're close to the 100,000.
Yes, so it could be potentially up to $2,000 out of our own pocket, which,
And we have implemented last month the fee schedule for a lot of items that we didn't charge before. So I'm not saying that we're going to pick up $20,000 in additional revenue, but maybe a $10,000 just on the room alone, on the rental here.
Yeah, but we have a potential of added cost. If I think I just heard that.
Yeah.
If we're only in the $80,000, we're on the hook for the other 20.
Plus,
We're gonna pay 10,000.
Plus, we have
No,
to, we have to.
no,
we have to
we wouldn't
incur-
pay the 20.
And
Go ahead, Chelsea.
We're not paying 10,000 a year if it's under.
if how do I explain this? So we have to have $100,000 worth of sales. That's the minimum. So if we have $101,000 worth of sales, the district pays not a dime. If we have $99,000 worth of sales, that $1,000 difference, we'd have to pay the 10%.
Well, I got it then. Right now, we're at 80,000.
Yes.
So we'd have to
So
pay
we would have
2,000.
to, yes,
Okay.
exactly.
That's what I thought.
So we're hoping that there will be $20,000 of either increased revenue in existing
Yes.
or additional revenue.
Yes.
And is this a 1-year agreement? Like, can
Yeah.
we terminate at any time?
Yes.
Well,
I
okay.
think there's a 30-day notice.
And I understand what you're saying. But if they don't re-get it, we're on the hook for money that we don't currently have to pay, whether it's $10 or $20,000 or $2,000.
Yeah, it's in labor.
Why
It's
do
in
we
labor
want, I'm not
costs is what it
understanding,
is.
why do I
Yeah.
want to change it? I'm struggling with that. And if we're not going to have a staff savings on it, then again, I'm still struggling with why do we want to voluntarily incur?
About the only way you'd want to do it, Bob, it would be as if you have knowledge that you're going to be able to reach the 100,000.
Well, and
I mean,
that's why
that's
we
the
would like to
bottom
do this for at least a year, test it out. Staff time, it's gonna save a lot of staff time.
Have you discussed this with the leagues?
No,
So that's what I would recommend, because they're going to be impacted as well.
it'll be easier for them, truthfully.
Let me ask you this, would we be able to pass along the difference if we did not reach $100,000 and then, and here we are, we need to come up with $10,000? Could we divide that with the leagues or anybody else that uses it and have them pay? So
That-
it
We
would
wouldn't
come
know
from
till
us?
the end of the
I don't
year,
think
though.
so.
Well,
I mean, we would
what-
have to cover it
Be
next
kind
year.
What you would have to do is change your rate schedule now.
It'd be pay as you exit. I don't know if they go
Yeah.
for very
Yeah,
well.
I think what you do is you increase your fees the next year to recover your costs from the previous year. That's the only way that you could do it. And it's not the league's fault that we don't
Mhm.
generate more revenue.
No,
I
I
mean, if we
totally
don't
get
charge
it,
them for
yeah.
it, yeah.
They're just
It's
the
not their fault.
biggest revenue from Parks and Recs.
I like the idea. I don't know what the negatives, I don't know what the negative implications are. It sounds good, but I don't know.
Doesn't look like, I don't think there's a free lunch. I'm sorry. It's just, it puts us on the hook for a $10,000 expense we don't currently have.
So would you want to make a motion to pull that item?
Well, I'll make the motion to pull that item.
All right, do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. And what I would ask is just, let's do a little more due diligence on it. And I do think this is something that's gonna impact the leagues. If they come back and say, oh, this would be so much better, we don't have to deal with the district, it'll be easier for us to add additional fields, then I would come back and say, yeah, if it's easier for them, they might even rent more fields. If our staff isn't worried about contracts and doing the maintenance, maybe they can spend more time, maybe oversight and driving more revenue opportunities, programs, stuff like that. That will make it easy to make up for that
To
$10,000.
justify.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can come back, including that number, the board rental.
Yeah.
As well, and then the pavilion.
If I may, Madam Chair, just a point of clarification, when you said you pulled the item, you pulled it off of consent. So I guess the next question is, what's the action to be taken?
Table it.
Come back and
I
table
think
it.
you
Table it and come back.
Well, and to the extent that Facilitron, have they started doing anything, Chelsea?
No.
Because there is a termination for convenience clause, and we only have to pay for what they've done up until the point of termination.
They haven't done anything.
Okay, so.
If we're going to do this and get our feet wet, do it for a full year, but I'm not ready to go that route
Yeah,
yet.
not yet. I'm not opposed to it. I just want to learn.
So is it tabled to a future date? Is that, or?
We'll do table until you come back with the numbers of
Okay.
the soccer fields plus all the other fee schedule items. All right.
And
And contact the leagues.
Yep.
That was the main.
Mhm.
if that's the only item to pull, I would make a motion to approve
Well,
item. You have another one? Go ahead.
Just a question.
Sorry, Bob.
The Lee County Sheriff's Office agreement, that's the existing one we have been doing, right?
Yes.
As I understand it, the problem isn't us having money. We can't get people to come. Is that correct? We can't get Lee County to come,
No.
even though we're willing to
No.
pay?
No.
No,
That's-
we asked,
unique to the city.
Okay, because we have the
Yeah,
problem in
well-
Pelican. We've authorized money. We've authorized, we want them, but we can't get them.
no, we give them a schedule.
Okay.
That's was what I was going to ask is
Yeah.
one, is there a schedule involved?
There will be,
And we know, somebody here knows what it is.
yes.
Yes.
So that we verify.
The
hey,
days and
Yes.
times and locations are all agreed upon in advance.
And then they follow up with a written report
But I mean,
after
is
each
somebody
shift.
there checking to see that they're there?
We don't, but they send a report to Chelsea and I each time.
I can dry lab a report. When they're in Gateway Greens, I check them.
I-
I make sure they're there. I want to make sure they're not sleeping in a car.
I have been checking when it's over here, Parks and Recs and at the fun park, but that's it, not out there on Gateway Boulevard where I think we need it.
Yeah. Then the other part of it is that all of our street signs are MUTCD compliant on all of our roads that they're doing.
Their county, the Gateway Boulevard and
They're county
Griffin are
roads.
county roads.
This is, but it's not going on to any of the other roads.
No,
I mean,
don't
they
go
may,
into the
no,
neighborhoods.
they may
No, I
be
don't
on
mean
Soccer
neighborhoods.
Drive.
We own like 6 other roads. Are they going to go into any of those roads?
The only other places,
The only other places that they have in their report, they do Gateway, Griffin, over here for the soccer complex, and they look at the fun park and the pool.
So then there was no requirement then to do an engineering study is what I was going. Good.
all right.
And Flavia, when you've gone to check them, are they there
Yes,
at the soccer?
and
Okay, great.
I have, yeah, because it, me with feedback, so yeah.
They
The
even
contract's
mentioned
the
that they spoke with you sometimes in their reports, so.
Yes, yes.
The contract's the same as we just
I
signed.
put my
at
hat
Gateway
on.
Yeah,
Greens.
same thing. Okay.
Yeah, all right,
That's
so
great.
we're good with everything else, B, C, and D?
So
Another
I'll
question.
make a motion to approve items, consent agenda 9, B, C, and D.
No, I have a question about
Yeah, I have a question also.
Charlie, and so does, I think, Carol, or not?
No, go ahead.
All right, on C, the asphalt road, 38,000. This is our workaround to pulling down trees? Is that right? That because we're not removing oak trees and the
Yes,
damage they occur?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
at least I know what it is.
Yeah.
This is something the residents really wanted, to keep the trees and all. They don't want the money, but they want, okay.
Well,
no
the
problem.
issue I had on the 2 bids is the same firm bid both of them. And the same firm was selected as best bid on both of them. Did the second firm, they were really the lowest firm. But when they put statements in, they didn't fully comply with the deal. For example, they left out permitting and they left out this. And then they said there would be a price escalation. Do we really know what the differential is in the bid? Because one was, I think, 138,000, one was 137,000. And we made a recommendation of award to the 138, which I have no problem with
Yeah.
that contractor, but
Which
Keith, do you
included
want,
all,
you want to
right?
come touch?
So somebody's checked all this and it's in our best interest to go with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Because I know that contractor.
Each one.
Yes, so, yeah, we did talk, Keith Riddle, Public Works Director. We did check that the escalation would have been greater than the difference in bid. Yeah.
And the comparable cost year over year, are we fixing the same amount of square footage roughly or not? Or
Well,
close, or?
not really. It's so unpredictable the way the roots grow here, so it's going to change every year.
Okay, is it greater this year than last year?
Yeah, it would be greater, yeah.
Well, you got diesel fuel. That's a
Yeah.
big one right there.
Everything's costing more
Oh,
now,
yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know if we were fixing.
I think Bob was
500
asking, is the linear footage?
Yeah, the actual,
linear
the
footage.
actual
Linear- not
damage,
cost, linear
damage is
footage.
greater and cost is greater, yes. Mhm.
Okay.
We don't expect as much next year, hopefully, so.
Did we put out the detail that they gave the price on? Because this was
Yes,
very
sir.
well written,
Yes,
very well written. So we put that together. It's not them
that was
going
our
out.
takeoff from
Our takeoff.
our conditional takeoff,
Okay, great.
yeah.
That's very good.
And Chelsea, I'm going to bring this up one more time because I think you're going to say yes, but is our policy, if we're doing an X square footage of repair, that we're not just spot repairing every 20 yards, that we're going to do a full.
Those will be field judgment calls based on the.
If you look at that
gap,
map,
yeah.
there's a bunch of
Oh,
spots
yes.
Yeah.
where you do
Yeah.
10 square yards.
Like a
20
checkerboard.
square- Yep, it's checkerboard.
Not a fan of that.
No, you just, with that is inherent extra cost for cosmetic, but we try to stay less, anything greater than 50, we try to connect the dots, so.
It just looks weird when you
Yeah.
got concrete and asphalt and concrete and
Or
asphalt.
less than 50.
Yeah, one last question, because it was unclear to me when I was reading it. In the different pictures, like page 71, we have asphalt up to the road. But on other occasions, grass to asphalt. On other occasions, it's grass to a pavement, a concrete pavement, not pavement, gutter, concrete gutter. Where it's currently grass to asphalt, we're not changing that, are we?
We're not changing the material type in any location.
Thank you.
So if it's a blacktop patch, it's a blacktop patch.
Yes, sir.
Or a blacktop
Asphalt,
sidewalk. it's
asphalt back,
asphalt.
concrete there, concrete back.
Well, I was just looking at to see if we were changing from grass to asphalt to grass to concrete to asphalt.
Gotcha.
That was the change,
Okay.
but I'm hearing no, so, okay. I
Thank
have
you.
no other problem, question.
You good?
I'm good, Madam Chair.
All right, so we have a motion from Doug, and we have a second?
I'll second it.
And all in favor?
Aye.
All right, district engineer?
So this first item is that before we jump to the district engineer, this first item is part of the discussion of this bond where we need direction from the board. And we've mentioned this in previous meetings about tax exempt bonds versus taxable bonds. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Rhonda Mossing. She's part of our bond team. She's on the call to explain the difference and how that impacts the district and what action or decision we need made today.
Good afternoon, this is Rhonda Mossing. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So the question is whether or not you want to keep the Gateway Commons pool area open to the public or whether you want to close that and have it be available for residents only. And from a tax exempt bond standpoint, the facility would need to be open to the public. We are looking at structuring your first bond issue with all of your other tax exempt improvements, and we could issue taxable bonds for the costs related to the Gateway Commons pool area, and that would just be a small component of the total bond issue. It would be at a higher interest rate, and it would increase the assessment slightly to all of the residents to keep that pool closed to the public. And that's a consideration that we're asking the board for direction on today so that we can finalize the structure of that first bond issue and move forward with that. So I believe you have a schedule that I provided to the team that shows the taxable component of the bonds versus the tax exempt bonds, and you're just issuing a little bit more in debt. You'll probably have a higher coupon, average coupon on that, and like I said, it would probably increase the annual assessments per unit somewhere less than $3 per year per unit. So based upon that, we would be asking for the board's direction on how you want to proceed there.
I thought I saw somewhere in there that it said $2, the net impact on residents is $2.18 or something,
83.
283.
And that's
Why,
an estimate, so that's why I said less than $3 per unit.
why would we not want to do that? I mean, for $3 to keep it for Gateway and not have that problem, I'd do it every day of the week and twice on Sunday.
Go ahead.
So I have a question. So Tony, that's the pool. If there are any other amenities built out on that property, do we fall under that same?
Using this financing or another financing? That's the question. It all depends.
So we would, well, it would
Just
be
use
bond.
this for everything.
Yeah.
Use this for everything.
It would-
Anything
it would
that's
be
at that,
bond financing.
anything that's at park that we want to take and maintain as for Gateway residents and their guests. We pay this as a
Private
taxable,
activity,
private
bond.
deal, and it costs everybody $3 a year. And I'll take that any day of the week.
And again, that part just change as
It's- but interest rates changing
yeah,
everything, yeah.
yeah. But
Well, interest rates and also if we add more amenities. But right now, I agree
Yeah,
with you.
yeah.
The $3 is not worth talking about. Keep it private.
yeah, my only point was if we're, whatever we do there, we probably should carry it throughout
The other items.
Yeah.
the, the other amenities
Yeah, now
in
at
that, in that
least we know.
location. Then it becomes a nightmare.
We-
So
we've
we're setting a
constantly
precedent
been
for what,
talking
what that
about
part will be.
What's the differential? Now we know the differential.
I'm limiting it to just the park at this point in
The
time.
commons.
Just the
part.
pool.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is if
I'm
anything
sorry.
ever was built
Just
out.
the commons property,
Yes, sir.
right? Because we recognize we have a different situation at the Sherman.
I
Soccer
understand
Complex.
that.
Yeah.
That's why I
That's
said,
what we're
Impact
talking
fees
about.
and everything.
I agree.
Okay.
Commons Park.
Okay.
So I'd
I'll
make
make a motion. We accept.
I'd second it then.
All in
Keep it
favor?
private.
Aye. All right, Rhonda,
You
you
got
got
your
your
direction?
answer.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll proceed to put that structure together and bring that back to the board. Today, the next item on your agenda is the approval of the supplemental engineers report and the supplemental assessment methodology report, which will be the backbone of your first bond issuance. And I'll let Fred and Russ review that with you. And then when they're done, I can walk you through the next steps in the issuance of the 2023 bonds.
All right. Fred, you want to?
Good afternoon. Fred Middle, Tetra Tech. I'm the professional engineer that was the principal author of the Series 2023 bond report. I trust that you've seen the report and looked at it. So just to give you the overview, this is the first actual bond issuance that we're pursuing or the team is pursuing. It's a subset of the 10-year capital improvement. This is the first 3 years of that capital improvement program. And those numbers really come directly from that with some modifications downward, I believe. We took the 10-year bond CIP and looked at the first 3 years and looked at what could be achieved in the time frame that we have to live within. Which is about 3 years from bond issuance. Rhonda can verify that exact time frame, but I think it's about 3 years.
It's through 2025. So it's really 22
Including
plus.
Since the bonds are issued.
Correct.
Okay, so we want to bond an amount of projects that can actually be undertaken and completed. And just looking at how it compares to the 10-year CIP, there's an administrative category, 7 projects in there, and we have 7 projects in the Series 2023 bond, components of that, portions of it. Some of them cover the entire subcategory. Others are will continue beyond 3 years potentially. Waterway management, there's 7 subcategories in the 10-year CIP. In the 3-year Series 2023 bond issuance, one of those is removed, and that is the lake bank restoration. That is no longer, that will not be in this Series 2023 project. If there's going to be lake bank restoration, that would be the district plans to pursue SRF financing for that.
Does that include the point bank repairs?
No, there is
They're in here.
repairs. The
So
repairs.
point bank is part of this,
Correct.
but the whole replacement is SRF.
It's a,
Okay.
And actually, that's the only category that is, it's actually number 3.7. That is not in that's in the CIP, the 10-year, but not in the 3-year. So every other of the, number of projects, that's the only one that's not having some amount of spending on, and that is the lake bank restoration, the wholesale restoration. But as we said, the repairs and maintenance does stay within here. In fact, there's $550,000 budgeted for that.
That's what I was questioning.
Yes.
550.
Roadway and landscape, there's 4 categories that they match the 10-year CIP. It just takes the first 3 years of spending into this bond. Same with parks and recreation. There's spending in every category, actually, that's listed in the 10-year bond. So portions of that 10-year CIP. And the total is $13,439,000 for the capital spending component, portion of the bond.
Madam Chair, and that the streetlight pole wiring and fixture replacement, Chelsea, if we continue to pursue the FPNL replacement project,
That is part of this bond because there will be construction and aid of contribution and aid of construction. I'm going to get it right one day, as part of that project that the district would have to pay.
but our phase 1, that number will be greatly reduced.
This number is a close number without FPL going into the weeds on those specific project. This is what's in the
number?
bond is a budget number that we believe will cover the cost of that project. The $1 million, yes.
Questions?
no. Go ahead.
In essence, what we've done, and I'm a little disturbed by it, is that we passed the bond validation, okay? We have now taken less than 45 days since we've done that, and we're spending roughly 33.33% of that 45 million.
That was the plan, right?
No, the plan is that the things were going to come before the board and make a decision of what we're going to do and what we're not going to do on a timing. I want to get around to what, I don't know if he's still here. Is Rod still here? No, he must have left.
Yes.
But this is something that I wanted to point out while he was here. You take that 13 million, which is what this is, and you do it by a capital methodology. This is why capital reserve methodology on this type of deal simply does not work. That says that our 6,600 ERUs, ballpark, would have to come up with an assessments of 13 million, and it's really more than that. It's 14.5 million when you throw in the non-construction costs. Our residents over this 4-year period are going to have to be putting in every year a little over $500, not $171.
If we go capital improvement.
If we go capital improvement. My other thing on this is, well, I think that, and I talked to Chelsea earlier today, if she gives me the confidence level, these numbers have been authenticated, maybe not by bids, but they're by good engineering estimates based upon the best we've got at this time. I don't have a problem with that because I can't think of one of these on either the administration or the waterway management or the streets and roads that I've got an issue with. The deal with FPL is a little shaky right now. We don't know all that. But that Parks and Rec just blows my mind. As far as I'm concerned, that 500,000, 300,000 and all that can wait until we get a park study done by people that come back and say, hey, this is what we would recommend that you do as first phase, second phase, third phase, fourth phase. I know it's a pittance to the total deal, $800,000 out of 13 million, but I just don't feel that that is justified whatsoever. So my deal would be I could go along with this except for the parks and recreation stuff.
Except that, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, Ed, but the pool filtration replacement and the renovations, that $110,000, I think that's.
Operating stuff, I don't have an issue with.
Okay.
No.
In fact, this isn't considered to be.
The 500,000, when you look at what it read, what it was supposed to be, it was almost kind of, again, a quasi wish list. And that's exactly what we said we weren't going to
Well, and we
do.
kept telling the public, this is only a validation. It's not authorization to spend.
Mhm.
So I'm sensitive to the way you said it. 45 days later, now we're asking for a third of it.
That's right.
That's a problem. Yes.
850,000 of this is, in my opinion, a wish list.
Well, and if that's the case, I don't think we should approve any of the street light pole wiring until we approve what the direction on that is. I mean, if we're gonna say we're not gonna approve any money until it actually comes through and get approved, then we need to go through these items one by one and approve them, or else you can't throw out one thing and not throw out everything.
I don't have a problem.
I don't have a problem with that.
I mean, if we're gonna follow a process, let's follow a process.
Chelsea, you
Yeah,
had something?
I don't have a problem with that.
I just wanted to make it clear that on that 10-year CIP, this first series were the priority projects that between staff, the engineer, and this board felt that we needed to get done sooner rather than later. And so that's why this number is that higher percentage of the total amount.
And that's what I was gonna ask you. So this is the information from our workshop
Yes.
that we had.
Yeah, this is the information that was come straight from the September engineers report, and that was the basis of the bond validation. I have absolutely no problem with that. That is the correct way of doing it. But now it's time for the rubber to hit the road and to make a decision. Are these costs, one, are they reasonable? And two, are they necessary? Right now, for the most part, I don't have a problem with the majority of these. I do have a problem with that park deal. I don't think it's reasonable. I certainly don't think it's necessary.
Do you want to go in detail what those costs are for the park?
If the board wishes, we can go line item by line item, or I can address the single items that I brought up.
Is it an all or nothing, or you want her to go line by line item on each one and we will have discussion?
It's listed right there in table 4.3.
Yeah, what page on?
123.
Yes, the first one.
Well, the summary.
Hard copy is on 123, page 123.
119 shows the 550 and the 300, and then on page 120, 5.3 and 5.4, with about 4 sentences, you spend $850,000.
What page, so we can pull it up?
120.
120 and 121.
Okay.
What page of the engineers report?
I think it's 20.
That's what I'm on, page 120.
No,
No.
21 of the
21 and
engineer's
22.
report, 21, 22.
Okay.
I'm kind of
Which
right at this
document?
now, I'm right now at this point in time.
The engineer's report.
The landscaping and monuments, we've talked about that, and I'm not going to get into that if we do a thumbs up, thumbs down. I don't care. But on 5.3 and 5.4, there's just not enough there to sink my teeth into that this is what the public wants.
Okay, so we want to address 5.4, then the Sherman Soccer Complex and additional parking area and stormwater detention infrastructure. So that's 300,000. So we talked, do you want to go into detail what this is?
Yep, so clearly there's been a parking issue, we have a storage issue, and the idea was to have the storage facility at the back part of this soccer complex, as well as addressing the flooding issues that we have back there and additional parking for the soccer complex. So that's what that $300,000 would be
Okay,
comprised
so we
of.
have a layout plan of this and everything.
We worked with Tetra Tech and took the RV concept that was put together some years ago and started using pieces of that to look at what we could do that would be feasible within that dollar amount.
So then parks at 5.4, parks and recreation, fields and amenities, it's really purely Sherman Soccer Complex, drainage and parking. There's no amenities.
And that's what I wanted it to bring it up in detail. So
Okay.
I figured you'll make it easier on you.
That's where I was going.
Okay.
If explain that away and there's no amenities in there, then that's a different story.
Okay.
But
So-
when I go up to 5.3 and I know that I'm looking at 550,000, it reads, the scope of phase one includes passive recreational components such as walking trails, shade pavilions, drinking fountains, fitness equipment, disc golf course, landscaping, and a playground area at a tune of 550,000. No, 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 hell no.
I wouldn't be opposed to having the playground because we did have that discussion about repairing and replacing the fun park, but I don't know exactly in details what all of this on 5.3 is.
I'd like to get that committee put together and then come back to us because we can always add it. If that's the consent of the committee and the community.
Because I'd want to look too, if we're gonna put the effort in to build our building, would it make sense to do something in phase one? Is it more cost effective to have, people out there? So, I mean, I'm not opposed to pulling that.
Pulling 5.3?
Well, let me look at this another way. If we approve the 13.439 for the bond, but not the spending, and then look and review each and every item, recognizing as is that we probably won't spend the 1.3 in the park and rec area.
Can you do that?
That's what I was.
That's my question. I know up north you can't do that.
Yeah, I think Rhonda will advise, and the bond counsel is here that also advise that once you issue the bonds, you have a certain period of time in which to expend the monies on the various projects identified in the bond issue. And the projects will be identified in the bond issue. You can have certain variations and
Can you
modifications.
delete them?
Pardon?
Can you subsequently delete them, not use the money?
Yes, and then, Rhonda, how would that be addressed? I guess the bond covenants would address what happens with proceeds that aren't utilized.
Typically, what would happen is if the board did not authorize to proceed with any of the projects that were funded with the bond funds, and at the end of the day, when this engineer certifies the 2023 bond-funded project completed, any funds that were left over and not expended would be used to call bonds and then therefore reduce the assessments that are passed on to the residents for that bond issue.
Any penalties with not spending the money that you validate?
It's not what you're validating, it's what you're issuing. And if you don't spend the funds that you're issuing, then there's no penalty. There will actually be a covenant that says any funds remaining will be used to call bonds, and there wouldn't be a penalty for that.
And this is Pedro, bond counsel. You would be obviously incurring borrowing costs during that period of time. So there will be a cost to carry those monies.
And just
sure, you'll be paying interest on it until you make the bond call.
Yeah.
So is it best practice? Is it best practice to issue that bond in a large amount and not fully execute if that's the intent, versus doing incremental issuance of, let's say, smaller notes?
Incremental issuances are going to cost you more money because every time you do an incremental issuance, you're going to pay costs of issuance that are outlined in this first bond financing. So you're going to pay that each and every time you issue bonds. It's not going to be, most of those costs are not going to be prorated. They're going to be pretty fixed because each time you're doing all the work all over again. So it's common practice for you to issue the debt based upon best estimates and engineers' judgment on the costs. And then if at the end of the day, say, for example, the FP&L streetlights, if you decide you want half as many streetlights, you don't want to put as many in as what you had budgeted for because maybe it costs twice as much as you thought, then, you can always make those adjustments, and whatever's left over at the end of the day, if you do none of the projects, you just call the bonds and then you pay them off.
And by calling the bond, you can pay it back.
Rhonda, if you
I would just add to that, like, if certain projects are determined not to be funded, there is the possibility of amending the project description and funding, because we have a full CIP that's been authorized, and This supplemental engineers report is a portion of that COEP. So if you fund another project, if it's within, it'll be easier if it's within the same category, because if you substitute a project from the CIP that's a different category, that's assessed in a different manner, then it would require a change to the methodology for the bonds. But there is that ability to essentially, or we can build in that ability to make changes. Plans do change. I mean, 3 years is a long time. That's the expected spend down, and there could be changes in circumstances, and that does happen where boards take action where a project that may be on the date of issuance was something that they wanted to do, but circumstances changed and they found another project to substitute for it. That's also a possibility.
Let me ask you this way. I'm tainted by what happened up north. A lot of the stuff you do down here, you don't get away with up north. If we would take and go on ahead and go as in the engineer's report for the 13 million that Fred just presented, plus the soft cost to add about another million, 14 million. That's going to generate that $171 tax number on people in probably 2 years, correct?
Yes.
If we don't spend, let's say next year or after the committee rules that they don't want those particular amenities, or they don't want any at the park, and that 550 simply because it's a number that's defined, we could still keep the bond, but would we be able to dedicate that 550 to another contingency item that would possibly come up?
You could put it toward another cost that's outlined in the master CIP that you've approved, and move that, the construction of that up a year or two rather than the next bond issue. Just like Pedro said, you could do that. And depending upon if, say, you're moving money from the Parks and Recreation category to the roads and landscaping category, it might require a fine tuning of the assessment allocation, because they're both, the benefit is calculated differently for each of those categories, but it absolutely can be done.
Okay, gotcha. So if we would take that 550 out, because I talked to Russ earlier, and the last thing I want to do is to make this a Chinese fire drill of calculating and taking $171, taking out 550 and calling it $169.50. I mean, that would be stupid. We'd be better off stick with the 171, and I would withdraw pulling out that part deal, leave it at the calculation. However, not at this time make a decision to go spend that money until we have further information.
Every project would have to come back in front of this board for their approval.
I took that.
So I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-09, adopting the first supplemental engineering report for supplemental assessment methodology.
One correction. In the first supplemental assessment methodology, there's a revision that's not reflected in regards to one property, that the memorial, the health homes, the Sony building, I think it is.
What page you on?
Page 162.
Oh, this is in the assessment methodology.
Yes, if you look at the
breakdown,
since the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th parcel down, I believe.
Was this that one that we found out we had a tax exempt?
What's the addition that we need to make?
That would be to zero.
They were paying zero.
Zero is what's in the book that I'm looking at.
It's page 162 of the book.
Yeah, it says zero.
Well, mine says.
Mine shows zero.
Okay, good. Mine has the old one.
All right, then
Okay, good.
Make the motion as is.
Good, thank you. No, the one I have is.
And then we have a second by Carol.
Yeah.
And all in favor? Aye.
I got the bad book.
Thank you, Rhonda, for that clarification, because that made this a little bit simpler, and I certainly don't want to pay those fees twice.
Before we jump to the next item, Rhonda, could you just kind of go over next steps and process? That way the board and the public understand where we're at.
Okay, so over the next 30 days, we're going to be working on the documents for this first bond issue. And we're going to be coming back to the board at your January 19th meeting for you to approve what we refer to as a delegation resolution. And that delegation resolution will approve a form of the master and supplemental trust indentures for the bond issuance. It will approve a preliminary offering statement for the marketing of the bonds. It will approve a continuing disclosure agreement that outlines details of things that the district will continue to disclose to the bondholders over the life of the bonds. And it will approve a form of a bond purchase agreement. That's when the district is authorizing us to proceed to go to market and price the bonds. So that'll be your January 19th meeting. Then the week of January 23rd, we will begin the marketing process and we'll post the preliminary offering statement and get it out there for the investors to review and ask their questions. Then the week of February 6th, we plan to sign or price the bonds and come back and have the chairman sign the bond purchase agreement. Now, when you approve the delegation resolution on January 19th, you will be approving certain parameters for us to enter into the market with, such as like the maximum par amount of bonds to be issued, the maximum interest rate that you're willing to pay on those bonds, the capitalized interest period, the reserve fund amount. All of those parameters will be outlined in that resolution. And if we price the bonds within those parameters, we will be asking you to sign a bond purchase agreement to move forward with the closing on the bonds. And that would be planned for February 20th, following your February 16th board meeting, where you will approve the final supplemental assessment methodology report that will reflect the final assessments based upon the final pricing of the debt.
Effective what year on the taxes?
It's planned to go on the tax bill in 2024.
So I
For
would
the
start,
fiscal year 2024-25.
thank you. So I'd start 100 at this point in time in the calculations for the rest. That would mean every year everybody would see for 20 straight consecutive years $171 if we don't spend another nickel. Added
Right.
to
That's correct,
okay.
Supervisor Tinkle.
Thank you.
Yeah, say that one more time, Ed.
If this is due and payable the 20 years, it's for 20 years P&I recovery. So starting in 2025 or 2024-25, everybody's current non-ad valorem tax that they see that's currently 707, if we would freeze that at where it's at, it would be a 707 plus 171, 707 plus 171, 707 plus 171 every year for 20 years.
And that's if we never exceeded the 13.
On all those assumptions.
0.39.
Pelican has a different number.
No, I'm okay. I'm comfortable with that.
Then the other one is, I think I want to go back. I think we approved the engineer's report, the supplement December, and the methodology, but did we approve the resolution?
I think there was a motion made.
I didn't hear
a
that
second
part.
to approve the resolution, but I don't know if there was a vote on it.
Yeah, I want to make sure we approve that resolution.
Doug, motion, Carol.
Carol.
Second.
Yeah.
You all voted.
So we'd had 2 votes then?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it was actually one vote to approve the 2023-09.
Yeah, but we also.
We did separate. What he's saying is we did a motion to approve item A, but we didn't do for B. Is that what you're saying now? But I thought we did with Doug and Carl.
Okay, I thought
we
we
did.
approved the
With Doug
engineer
and
report.
Carol.
Okay, if you're all happy, I'm happy. I just want to make sure we had it covered. Okay, thank you.
All right, so then admin agenda items.
Yes, we
And then
have
you wanna
Lee
introduce-
County Solid Waste here to give a presentation.
And I want to start with saying thank you, and I hope you had fun in the last hour of.
You learned all
Also-
about Gateway.
I love it. Thank you. Are you going to be?
Yep.
Okay. So my name is Doug Whitehead. I'm Director of Solid Waste for Lee County. My department is in charge of debris collection for the county in the aftermath of Hurricane Ian. And what I I want to go through is show quite a bit. And of course, the point of view is that regarding use of Gulf Coast landfill for hurricane debris and hurricane debris only. So if you have this look in front of you, is that the first slide essentially shows sort of the life of hurricane debris. And what I'd like to point out is that at this point, as of tomorrow close of business, in unincorporated Lee County, which includes Gateway, does not include Pelican Preserve, will have picked up 4 million cubic yards of material. Of that, more than a third is construction and demolition material. Mostly, as you know, from the storm surge in unincorporated Lee, particularly Pine Island and Iona areas. So that place, that has to have a place to go. We'll talk a little bit about that. But even today is that we're averaging 70,000 cubic yards a day in unincorporated Lee County of collection of material. And again, more than that, more than a third of that now is construction and demolition debris. So we believe our estimate right now is that we'll overall pick up about 10 million cubic yards of material in Lee County alone from Hurricane Ian. And Hurricane Ian in many ways is a multi-generational event. It's different from every other storm I think the county's had, and it's even different from the one we always refer to, which is Hurricane Andrew back in 92 in terms of quantity and breadth of material. So it starts with right-of-way collection. I think you've seen the big black trucks, which have the trailer and they have a self-loader. Those trucks come from all over the eastern United States. They're not good for much else except picking up debris. So people just don't have them in the county laying around. And how much we pick up is dependent upon the density of the field. For instance, you know, here in Gateway and up in Lehigh Acres, there just wasn't a lot of density to material compared to Fort Myers Beach, the area around South McGregor, San Carlos Boulevard, areas like that. Extraordinarily dense. And by the way, material is still coming out. If you go down San Carlos Boulevard, it's a wall of material today. And so that material first goes to a debris management site, a DMS. And the DMS is in places like Waxahachie Park, which is located right next to Lexington Middle School. Lover's Key, if you've been down there, Lover's Key, we have essentially the entire state park is covered in debris that we're managing. And the another good location, as an example, is the elementary school on Fort Myers Beach. There's a location right down there, so there's a location right there where it has several 100,000 cubic yards. So so these DMSs essentially take the material. If it's yard waste, they grind it. We send the mulch out across wherever we can to get it. There's final disposal locations. We send it to palm tree plantations. But the construction and demolition material, which is really the thing that's extraordinary and different this time, is going to landfills. It is going to, as I spoke about, Gulf Coast landfill, which is doing quite a bit. It's going to SLD landfill, which is actually located in Charlotte County. We're sending material to Charlotte County for disposal, and we're also recycling some material in the city of Fort Myers and also off of Alico Road at Southwest Disposal. Those are the green trucks, green and white trucks you may see around the county. So the flow is dependent, it's like a pipeline. It's dependent upon number of trucks, space, quantity of DMSs. But then at the end of the day, all the material has to go to final location, which is a landfill. Nobody really likes landfills. I can tell you that. I think I told Chelsea once that a lot of people I work with didn't even know that the county owned a landfill when I got here. But there are, you know, we have a landfill that's out in Hendry County. It is very far away. And it really, the distance prevents us from speeding material off these DMSs. And a DMS is nothing but a field where we have material, demolition debris, sitting, waiting to be compacted and moved off. Next slide, please. So appreciate your patience in that slide. So if you can look, is that this is an example. These are both from Fort Myers Beach. These are fairly recently from Fort Myers Beach. You can tell that because there's no cars. And then here's a debris management site. This is a great, shows you what left. That is right next to the elementary school on Fort Myers Beach. And you can see the trucks lining up to be loaded. There's an excavator. It's about 10 feet in the air unloading for the material. And that is what Lover's Key State Park is like on the right side right now. Thanks. So this shows you all the different sites. It shows you that we do have a lot of locations around the county collecting material. Of course, concentrated near where the damage is, near where the water is. Pine Island, Lover's Key, Waxahachie, and Bay Oaks are some of the biggest ones. The closest one is Page Field. That brings up something that I need to point out is that at the entrance to Gulf Coast landfill, there is a debris management site. That is a state site. It is not a Lee County site. It is a mission run for the state of Florida for debris that's in waterways. So I want to point that out is that I communicate the state about it. I've sort of expressed our desire to have it not be there. They say they don't have a lot of options. So I'll continue to work with them, but that is a state management site. Why Gulf Coast landfill? I think everyone can read the reasons. I want to emphasize we are using other sites. Lee Hendry is just very, very far away, and it limits our ability to move material out of the debris, concentrated debris at the site. This shows you this Gulf Coast sequencing. So in addition, Waste Management has nearly filled up a burn across following, the area where Pelican Preserve is. They're going to fill that in. They're going to put soil on the outside, and then they're actually going to move material down to the north slope, which is they're ready to do. The north slope should be completely out of view. And also they're operating only during the day. There have been some issues that they've had. One thing I have to emphasize, and I've said it on the tours that I've made with people from Pelican Preserve and other locations, is that while we have rules, is that if I told you that everyone follows the rules, I would never commit to that because there are people out there who don't do the right thing. We try to even chase them down and make sure they understand where trucks are supposed to go, what they're supposed to do, not do, and that's a constant operation both for the county. We have an inspector working on this, but also Waste Management's manager. So that shows you the location and distance.
I do have one quick question,
Yes,
if you don't
ma'am.
mind. Ash, go ahead, Ed.
It's my understanding that the Gulf Coast is owned by Waste Management.
Yes.
Okay. And that a portion of it is permitted for the dumping.
His understanding is that right now they permit to 100 feet. It is a double contained liner because part of FDEP's approval to do this was a requirement, even though debris, that debris has that liner system.
But my point is that the process is expedited because a permit exists.
Yes, sir.
Then a lot of rumors have been flying around here. I was at first thought that they were dumping purely landscape wastes in there, and it's not landscape waste, but it's the DMS.
Yes, sir. It is. It's construction demolition debris. It is hurricane debris.
Because landscape waste that can be recycled in other ways.
Yes, sir. That is normally recycled in many of the palm tree plantations, even including on Pine Island, places like that. And there are other locations, but they do take a small amount. I observed it yesterday. Small amount of ground up mulch that comes from the landscape waste. They use that for roads to reduce dust and also traction and absorb water.
For the layman, DMS includes what could be in that material going in there?
Anything that's placed out on the side of the road that's construction demolition material. No. As a matter of fact, we removed washing machines. I was at a location yesterday morning where we've been removing. Okay, so that's a great question. That brings up a question I hear a lot is that, well, there's hazardous waste out there. And again, I would never say never, but it would be household hazardous waste, much like you and I have underneath our sinks. Having said that, is that our contractor has collected separately 277 tons.
So it could be concrete, wood,
concrete.
shingles, tile,
Drywall.
all drywall, all of
absolutely.
that product.
Absolutely.
Okay. And then the last one is, I saw a number 800 to 2 million. I mean, I would think that we would be able to calculate it a little bit tighter than that as to how many cubic yards are remaining available in that site.
It depends upon the height. And one of the things I can tell you about the vagueness of it is that in the initial discussions, that was before they had stripped soil off of it. They thought the soil was 3 feet thick. In many locations, the soil is 8 feet deep on top. So that has increased the amount of capacity.
So then the last question is that if you're putting in, I guess it's a math deal. If you're putting in 80,000 cubic yards a day, and I'm assuming that's 24/7, or it's not 24/7, but 7 days a week?
Yes, sir.
So if we got, let's say, average out 2 million cubic yards, that site's plus or minus weather, I realize all the contingencies, but plus or minus that place should be shut down in less than a year.
I will not commit to anything
Well, I'm
like
trying-
that. I would,
I'm-
that
I'm
would
trying to-
be,
I'm trying to bring
I
up what
would
the
not
res-
want to say that. Is that, for instance, 3 weeks ago, we were picking up 100,000 cubic yards a day on the street. Now we're picking up about 65,000
The
cubic
reason I
yards
bring
a street.
that up is that there's a lot of promises that were made out there and then were broken. And my deal is that I certainly, being an engineer, I certainly understand why this needs to be done in the position everybody's in. It needs to be, but on the other hand, there needs to be a time clock. How long is this thing going to be open? If it's going to dibble dabble for 5 years, and I know I can't do anything about it, but I can sure as hell make a lot of noise.
Sir, so here's one thing I'll say is that another misconception I get is that someone at the county approved the opening. What we've agreed to do is deliver material to the landfill. And we are trying, to your point, deliver as much material as we can. I think there were like 8 trucks at a time unloading when I was up there the other day. So we intend to move the material as quickly as possible using our contractor. And we are again using other sites too.
Well, I'm trying to work you into a corner, and I think you realize it.
Yep.
I just don't understand why and for what reason it wouldn't behoove the county to go back and tell Waste Management and all the others, guys, you get 1 year, dump it as fast as you can, because 1 year's up, you're done.
I'll give you a very real practical reason is that there just aren't trucks out there. So the trucks that are used, but going back to the slide, we saw them being loaded down at Bay Oaks, is that those trucks are rare, precious, and there's also a 14-month construction lead time on them nationwide, because I buy them. I own about, the county owns about 25 of them. So and they're also used for normal garbage, like Miami-Dade and Broward County use those trucks to move their material from their county. They're going all the way up to Okeechobee, Florida with their regular daily waste. So that's why is that if you had the trucks and drivers, you absolutely could do it. I think that as we saw through the pandemic is that finding trucks and drivers for anything is very difficult. And that's why I'm absolutely tap dancing, because the rule that we told people is that 18 to 24 months, and would all of us, including Waste Management who's here today, we'd like to get it done a lot quicker, fill it to what it's allowed and move out. Absolutely. We'd like to put Hurricane Ian behind us, but in the absence of an unlimited supply of trucks and drivers.
But at this
I
point in
can't
time,
commit
there's
that.
no set date as to how long it's going to be open.
18 to 24 months is what's been discussed in public. So I would commit to that, but less than a year, I
The fire
can't do that.
that you're alluding to, that's underneath the county and every other municipality's hind end, is the reimbursement from FEMA. So they want to get it hauled off as fast as they can, because the longer that they prolong the hauling,
They got to start paying.
they have to start paying. So
We've opened up $150 million revolver for payment.
Okay, I have a few questions and then I'll open up to Carol. So how tall is that berm between that we're building?
I'd have to go out and measure it. I can get back with you, but from observing yesterday, it's about 10 to 12 feet at the
West side?
west end. Yes, sir.
So, okay. And then regarding the state part, and I know it's not with you, but that it's C&D waterways that's getting dumped there? Or
That
is
is my understanding. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so and I know I mentioned this to you before, there will be a benefit for the state to add their C&D into the Lee County because that would expedite us getting to, you know, the total amount there. Have we talked to them about that?
Yes. One of the issues I think with reimbursement, like Chelsea mentioned, is that when they drop it at a DMS located alongside the landfill, at that point, they are not allowed to get reimbursement for final disposal at the landfill. So some trucks that are collecting on the street are going all the way to the top and unloading. So that can be reimbursed. But once they dump that material at the DMS for the waterway debris, they are not eligible to be reimbursed for final disposal at Gulf Coast landfill. That is, it's just a rule. What I can tell you is that, and that has absolutely been discussed with the state.
And then the final thing, which was interesting to me, because I wanted to do the same math that Ed was doing the first day you're here, and you're like, I only been open for 11 days. It's actually after compacted, which I don't think that's something that we really were very vocal about it. So, because to me it was, you know, you weigh the trucks on the way in, when you reach the 2.2, you close it. And it's really not that, because it's after it's compacted, after it's dropped off. So it's not, I feel like it's not really 2.2. It's going to be a lot more.
Yeah, and something else is what I'd like to tell people is that come and look, because the tours that we've had, mainly from Pelican Preserve, have been very positive, and we've gotten thanks for them afterwards, which was really good. But you're right, is that we take in, so on the street, it's collected at a certain pounds per cubic yard. It goes to the DMS, it becomes more dense, and then we deliver it, and it becomes even more dense. The bottom line is the amount of material we collect in the county is the amount of material we collect in the county. That's it. That's sort of the limit that we can collect, is what we can give. And also they have, you know, permit requirements. They can't by permit exceed how much they have. So your point is it starts really loose, it gets more dense, and then it gets really dense when it's on top, because they have machines up there that weigh 130,000 pounds rolling over the waste to compact it.
Go ahead, Carol. You have some questions?
There was a fire at the landfill
Yes, ma'am.
last week. Do we know why it started? And are you venting the gas and stuff off?
We do not. Waste management is collecting the gas and burning it in a flare, which is standard landfill practice. We don't know what started the fire. My engineer who's here today, she went up at 9 o'clock, and within 2 hours it was put out. And it's put out mainly by water to knock out the flames, but then they put down about a foot of soil to do it. And the reason we do not go back in and dig around and root around in it, because that's just unsafe. And we don't want to have oxygen come back into the situation and possibly create another fire.
And I understand it was discovered by the people that actually are there on site.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
At night.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
have
Waste
security and stuff.
Waste Management also has their training center located there. So they have their East Coast training centers located on the opposite side of the community. And then also they have their collection trucks are located there. Their site on Pine Ridge Road was destroyed by storm surge. So they've been operating out of the sort of the northeast side of Gulf Coast landfill, which is where they have a large parking lot in their training area.
All right. So I'll let you
I
finish.
got a question
Oh,
too.
go ahead.
Doug, I appreciate the effort that's gone into this, and we all recognize the severity of Ian, and some neighborhoods were much more impacted than others. But the question that I've been hearing over and over again from the residents, and I live in Pelican, was the way in which this just came out in the last minute, that this was going to happen without any public notice or a chance for people to express their opinion. Can you comment on how that happened so quickly? I mean, clearly there was a lot of planning involved that led up to this when it was taken to the board.
Well, the question always is, when you're dealing with any officials, is we bring it to the board after there is a study and we think that it's the recommended solution. So we did study it. We made a recommendation, obviously, to the board, and it was voted on. Is that also it's an emergency action, which their time was of the essence because of the inability to find additional disposal space. While we do have other disposal space, it is limited. We did a bunch of studies on that. And that's it, is that, I would, here's what I'd say is that we're being charged $17 a cubic yard inbound. That's sort of all in the up and up. So I don't really understand. We need the space. We're very good in the space. We've gotten a lot of, even positive feedback from talking to people. So, I mean, the timing was of the essence to get the material, but we absolutely, on both the waste management side and as we studied our need, we did do a lot of studies prior. Didn't mean
But
that
without the
board would
benefit of
approve
the
it.
public having any idea you were even studying that site.
Well, I mean, it is absolutely, say, a benefit to the public, because right now material is sitting on lots which have no liner around the county. I mean, hundreds and thousands and even now millions of cubic yards of material. So the material has to go to a subtitle D landfill, which has a double composite liner. And that is, and that remains absolutely the concern for it, is that it had to go to a safe disposal location and to, and as quickly as possible, to our gentleman's point, is that we're trying to move the material close as possible. And Gulf Coast landfill is it's the closest site we have that we could possibly use to the actual point of impact of the hurricane.
Doug, you have 2 more slides on here? Okay.
So mitigating Gulf Coast impacts. We are, dust is an issue. Is that next slide? Yeah. So, and reducing the hazardous material. Hazardous material comes up as a question all the time. Again, I would never say never, but we're picking it up on the street. We are inspecting the loads at various locations. Also is that regarding air sampling, we did get the air sampling results back. Last night we did air sampling both upwind and downwind of the landfill. And for asbestos and hydrogen sulfide, which were 2 of the primary concerns, essentially there's non-detect. There's nothing to be detected. And then for respirable dust and total dust, is that we're at like 1/1000th of, I mean, like less than 0.1%, what the upper limit is. So we'll be sharing that with, for instance, Carol Brocky asked for that out at Pelican Preserve. We'll share that also with Chelsea for your review.
All right. I just want to finalize with 2 things. I know I had sent out Molly an email with a lot of concerns, and I just want to thank you for addressing all of those regarding the trucks that we saw in the beginning coming through Gateway Boulevard and Griffin. I have not seen any. I haven't heard of any at this time. Thanks for addressing the sign issue that was out there. So really, from all of the items that I put in, there was a concern, there was a plan, and it was rectified. If I could add, and it is a question and a request at the same time, what I noticed is there's a lot of those trucks don't have any covers. So an increased amount of debris, mainly plastic, on 82, the entrance of Gateway Boulevard, and 82 and Griffin. I couldn't tell you if it's in the way to the dump or leaving the dump, but if we could look into that, it's significant amount.
Okay. We will get with the drivers and continue to work with them to improve. But there is a team that has been out picking litter and will continue to be picking litter in the area. I mean, we understand that's a major concern.
And
appreciate it.
So Doug, last issue is you guys have some contact information up here, and
right.
Then this is in your board packet, but if you need this information, please let me know. I'll get this to you. And now that we have this new board, I would highly recommend that you take Doug and his team up on the offer and going and doing a tour of their facility. Separately, individually, on your own time.
Thank you.
Yes, sorry, good catch,
We'll
Tony.
send you, Ed.
It is very eye-opening and enlightening, and it truly is a full-blown system that they have.
And we're willing to do it, one-on-one too, which allows us probably to also go over to the Buckingham plant, which people often do not realize is like 5 minutes away, which is a 60 megawatt waste energy plant. It's right across the street.
So go individually.
Okay.
Yes, yes,
Well,
ma'am.
all right, so no other questions,
No,
and thank you everybody for
Thank
coming.
you very much. I
Yes,
appreciate
all
the
right.
time. I hope
Thank
it didn't
you.
take too much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right,
Next presentation.
FPL Streetlight.
Yes, we have Eric Colling with FPL here. This presentation got delayed a couple times because infamous Ian, and I'll turn it over to him.
Afternoon, Board. Eric Culling, FPL LED Lighting Solutions for the record. Do you want to lead in or kind of a follow from?
Yep. So a couple months ago, it seems like, or maybe a handful of months, this concept of as part of this fiscal year's, and was it last fiscal year's, of the street lighting? The board had put in funding to address the street light wiring throughout Gateway. The street light wiring and poles in the poles are the original poles that were installed in the 80s, early 90s. They were doing lots and lots of repairs, blowing our repair and maintenance budget out of the water. So as an alternative, I've worked with Eric on other projects in the past. And I asked him to come in to see what kind of solutions and options that they can provide the district. And so we had some initial discussions months back of different options. And this option we're bringing back, the board gave direction at the time to go back and look at all of our different accounts, ownership, things like that, who's responsible for what. So we've done some due diligence, Eric and his team, and then as well as staff, and done an inventory. I think, Mr. Tinkle, you've gone out and done an inventory yourself. So this is kind of the product of all of that research, and an option to move forward to replace poles, wiring, and fixtures.
Thank you, Chelsea. So this is a slide we had looked at before, basically just kind of outlining some of the highlights of what our FPL full maintenance LT1 program would be offering the district. We said we're going to be a minimal upfront cost compared to the capital expenditure of a self-performed type project. It's going to mitigate liability, of owning and operating a lighting system. And we can assist with managing construction of the project from start to finish. Looking at direction that we had received from Chelsea, and also with some input of what the standards are that Lee County DOT uses, we put together a photometric plan as a guideline to kind of estimate how many new facilities would be required to meet certain lighting criteria. From that, we were able to look at about 353 is what we're estimating along Gateway Boulevard, Griffin Drive, and on Commerce Lakes Drive. For right at this point in time, for conversation purposes, we're looking at a standard concrete pole with a kind of typical Cobra head LED fixture on that pole. The estimated upfront cost based on that scope of work would be roughly, we believe, to be $300,000. That is, again, a pretty high level budgetary estimate. What we would need authorization is to move forward with a full scale design study. Would be an engineering deposit, which is alluded to below at the 15,000. That's a non-refundable engineering deposit, but it would be applied towards the contribution in aid of construction, or CIAC, should the district decide to proceed with the project. Turnaround on the design, should you authorize or give recommendation to move forward with that, we're probably about 3 months, I think, to be able to pull together that design and installation. Kind of this, basically, we'd be designing the lighting circuits based on the photometric. This slide here, again, like I said, we in-house
as a courtesy, did do a photometric here for the district. That's just a sampling of kind of what the layout is looking like based on the criteria that we were provided. And that picture there kind of shows basically what, at this point in time, what that concrete pole and standard lighting fixture setup would look like.
This is the same, sorry, this is the same one on 82, right? The newer one? Like right here between Gateway Boulevard and Griffin, but on 82, this flat?
I cannot picture it specifically, but probably very similar.
Okay.
Yes. And I can get you an exact.
But these are concrete.
That's correct.
What are the poles along Gateway Boulevard right now, the dual fixtures? Are they 30 or 40?
What's that?
Do you know?
I thought the
30, they're
poles
30.
down Gateway Boulevard were 40s.
I think they're 30s.
They are 30s?
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. So actually, this actually changed a little bit potentially since we had talked before.
In a good way.
Yes, exactly. Do you want to kind of speak to that?
Yep. So Keith reached out in discussing kind of next steps and what it would take to make this project come to fruition. We were talking about permitting, and because Griffin and Gateway are owned by Lee County, and what, if any, permits they would require. So Keith reached out to Lee County Community Development Office, and they notified us that roadway lighting is exempt in their land development code. So we would not be required to pull an LDO or a limited development order or a development order, which in essence would have required the permitting, an engineer, photometric analysis, site visits, a lot of money. And so the only requirement that the county has is a right-of-way permit, which the FPL and or their contractor would pull. So that was a big win that we got over the last couple days. So it is exempt, and we have an email to confirm it.
Wasn't signed by the janitor, was it?
No.
Okay. This 353, which would be phase one, obviously, because we have other areas. Right now, we somehow have to, we're going to demolish steam homes.
We'd
remove them all.
Yes.
So I guess, Tony, how do we get around that problem?
We could make a determination that they're obsolete, inefficient, all those criteria, and declare them to be surplus.
Okay. So we can get
As an
past
overall
that.
part of the project.
Okay. Then we're looking at, I'm trying to compare apples and apples here.
Mm-hmm.
What are we paying right now? Right now, we're paying power costs to FPL for the lights of those 353, correct?
Yes.
And we are maintaining them.
Actually, in our study and evaluation, and this is kind of contained with what I did as appendices, we actually found that there are 247 fixtures that are currently being built. There's actually quite a bit more fixtures that are out there. It appears that we're currently underbilling for
What did I tell
fixtures.
you that 6 months ago?
Open the Pandora's box.
Your counselor.
As much as I want to pay you the correct amount,
Yeah.
I want you to bill me the correct
We
amount.
appreciate the donation of the power.
But my point is that right now we're paying for the maintenance and we're paying the power to them. When this is all done, you will incur the maintenance and be billing us a combined rate charge with both usage and a maintenance component.
That is correct.
And
bottom line, what is that number?
Based on the 353 poles and fixtures.
Which I think is pretty correct.
We're estimating, and this also would include the underground conductor. We're estimating about $12,000 a month.
So about 140 per year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to get it back to pole. Is this meter usage or is this per pole?
This would be per, ask the question again, I'm sorry.
Is this metered usage or is this per pole?
It would be directly fed from our transformers. The electricity is actually captured within the rate classification as basically a.
It's an average billing per pole.
That's correct.
That's what I was getting to.
It's $33.
$33.
Thank you for doing that math.
Okay.
I was going to get there.
That's my question back to staff. What are we paying per pole right now, which is a cost of our maintenance plus our energy usage?
Well,
what are we paying?
Sorry, to add that, what we pay, what we should be paying, because because he already knows we have way more poles now. So the number that we're paying now would be accurate.
Well, let's just start with what we're paying now. And that would have to be course corrected,
Yeah,
but, and you wouldn't be able to do it just per month. You'd have to look at your annual.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's
then
gotta
over
be
the
annual.
last 3 years.
Oh, yeah,
because
yeah,
you might
yeah,
have
yeah.
maintenance at different
Yeah,
intervals.
yeah, I'm just trying to get an idea that what's the value here? If we're paying 33 a pole under this deal and we're paying 33 a pole right now, and the problems we've incurred in trying to get people to fix stuff,
We'd have to go back and pull all of the invoices and do it.
we haven't done any of that. We haven't.
I haven't gotten to that point
Okay.
yet.
Okay. Then the second part of it, well, I'm taking it, all this is LED.
That's correct.
So we're going to get a great big break on the energy usage side anyway. So that helps. How do we address?
That's only if you ask for it.
We learned
Oh,
that
yes,
lesson.
we found
Not-
out.
not changing it.
Thanks,
Just-
thanks to Eric, we got that taken care of in our community.
Well, we haven't got it taken care of. in Pelican.
Some seem to think it got forgotten. They had momentary lapse, 7 years. How do we handle the rest? Will it be under this same scenario? Only maybe instead of 30-foot poles, you go 20-foot poles? Because I want to tie this up as one whole package. I don't want to just do phase one and then have the rest of these areas hanging.
Well, and I have a question before you answer that,
Yes.
if you don't mind.
Jumping around.
Part of my concern is not necessarily replacing poles like for like, but if you look down Gateway Boulevard, we need to address sidewalks and street lighting.
Yes.
So that's a problem. We're trying to do it both today. So
When you say sidewalk lighting?
sidewalk lighting, yeah.
So what
It's
we
non-existent.
what we could look at is actually the fixtures currently that we're looking at, or any in our catalog, they do have backlighting to them. So depending on the placement of those and what the setback is from sidewalk to where the pole would be to what the forward and side throw is, there is a distinct possibility that we could kind of accomplish both goals.
That's not the problem. It's the trees.
I was going to say the oak trees,
The
unless,
trees
unless
keep
they
the
do a
light from
big
hitting the
Y.
ground.
So, I mean, I think.
And that's going to have to be
But my whole point is like, you'll be
addressed
addressing,
either way.
you'll be addressing that. You'll be looking.
That's
But that's something we want you to do. Whether it's sidewalks, we need to look at street lighting and sidewalk lighting.
Understood.
I totally agree. That's really a problem here because our sidewalks along Gateway Boulevard at night are pitch black.
Sure.
You can't see anything.
They're the sprinklers next to it.
Yeah, the sprinklers and the 2-inch bumps in the blacktop. Yeah. Back to phase two. How do we get to, to me, we need to do all this at one time.
So the phase one that we're looking at right now is what, and thank you for pulling up this map.
And when you say Commerce Lakes, we got to keep in mind, we've got a little problem there.
Yes.
Commerce Lakes is Commerce Lakes West and Commerce Lakes East about.
Portion of it.
A portion of it, about a quarter of a mile.
So when, this is a map that Chelsea provides showing the whole district and kind of the layout of the roads and ownership and maintenance of the roads. What I'm focusing on, or what we were looking at today, is just what is highlighted in the blue. I think there's some questions regarding additional lighting, kind of actually over in your area, specifically of who's maintaining those facilities currently, and is that the way that it will continue going forward as well from an account holder standpoint.
So the orange, the blue is obviously the ones we know about. That's Commerce Lakes Drive, east and west, portion east, Gateway Boulevard, and Griffin Drive.
That's correct.
Then phase two would be, I guess what you've got in there is orange.
Yes. And then we would look to the neighborhood, which we could pair the neighborhood ones with that, which would be Gateway Greens.
See, that's what's got me concerned. You go to Gateway Greens entrance and it's shown as here as purple. It's not, that's CDDs.
This is a road ownership map.
Oh, I thought this was light ownership.
No, and that's why we wanted to have this as part of the discussion, road ownership map. Because most
Well, hold it. And that can't be, because the orange road, Westlinks Drive and Gateway is ours, not yours. I'd be glad to give it to you because I got to pay $400,000 to have it blacktop. That road from Gateway Greens all the way down to the guardhouse, all the way down to Commerce Links, is shown on here as orange. That's purple.
I'm not saying that.
Well, Well, so mine looks like it's got orange on it. It's so daggone tight.
I see.
Okay, now I don't see any orange.
Okay.
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 It's, okay.
Sorry.
Gotcha. Sorry.
Switch glasses, Ed.
So road ownership. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
that's how we were trying to tackle this and classify this, because there are nuances to each different one. Gateway and Griffin are the big arterial roadways that we'd like to, that have major issues that we'd like to address sooner than later. It's very clear in the interlocal with the county that we're responsible for the lighting. And then at the district's owned roadways, address those next. And then we know we have your neighborhood, which we own the lighting, but we don't own the roadways.
Let's see, we have 94 in our neighborhood.
If you
You
want,
have 100, you have about 7 in those 6 little off streets, 7 or 8.
so,
Up or down?
zoom out just a little bit. So this, if you want to scroll
There
down
we
one
go.
more.
Yeah, I couldn't, go back up one.
Where are the pins?
Oh, up.
Go up one. There you go. Stop.
Nope.
Go one too
You
far.
want the pins or?
Yeah,
Right
the
there.
yellow pins.
That purple, you
Hold on.
Okay.
going up and down too damn
So,
fast.
so.
He was
I'm with
asking
you,
for
Ed.
pins, and you were those.
Yes. So what this represents, these are field verified GPS marked by us locations,
Okay.
based on the roadways throughout. And then the summary of this map actually is the slide below this. And that's them.
Okay. That's
There's
what
the
bothered
summary,
me.
and then the next one down actually gives you the detailed breakout of
Yeah,
what we found.
That Gateway Greens Drive and West Links Drive, 81, I guarantee you there's 94. I don't know where this came from. Where these come from? I said I do it right.
We were out there and physically marked them.
You marked them, yeah.
I'm going to have
So.
you count some of my other things, like my golf
Like you
score.
said, yeah, I was gonna say, like your golf score.
Fairway Drive, I buy that. That's good. Pelican Reserve, Stony Brook, I don't know about.
So the point,
Pelican- Stony Brook had 100 and,
We're not trying to
108,
do
I
your
think.
calculation today.
we're not, again, we were looking at all of the district's assets in our list. FPL, we've learned that other than the main boulevard down in Pelican, a lot of the side streets are FPL, but the main boulevards in Pelican, we have an electrician that maintains those as needed. Stony Brook is full turnkey. Again, just trying to show that this precedent has been set. And I think, Flavia, your community may have this turnkey program as well. So this is not new to Gateway.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we don't just have a plan for part of this, that we do all of these roads and have a plan how to do it.
Well, if the board wants to give direction to staff and to FPL to come back with the proposal for all 3 phases, that we can do that.
Okay, that's what I was trying to get to earlier. We know what phase 1 is. What's phase 2?
Phase 1 is the blue roads.
Yeah.
Phase 2 is the orange roads, and then phase 3 would be your neighborhood, essentially, West Links and then
And
Gateway.
Fairway
Greens.
Lakes.
Well, we don't own Fairway Lakes.
Well, that's a no man's land.
That's a no man's land. Now, again, another nuance, part of Commerce Lakes Drive, we're paying for the lights that the board some years ago chose to
Going east.
Yes, that again, but that's privately owned, but
Gotcha.
the board chose to take on and pay for those streetlights. So there are, those nuances would be part of the phase 3, because we have some issues that we'd have to figure out working with Tony and addressing.
Okay, I don't have any problem with the phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, but I do have a problem of how do we handle and address the issues we got right now until phase 3 is implemented?
What do you mean? Where
all the
who
poles,
owns
all
it?
the poles that are broken and down and
those
all the repairs.
we've
We're going to do that ourselves.
We've contracted with Bentley, and I believe they have an existing PO out. We have a.
Okay.
I think that's
Yes.
the direction that we gave the last
Yes,
meeting.
and
we
so
didn't want
we-
to wait at
We didn't want to wait.
Correct, and
Okay.
we've moved on all of those items.
Gotcha. Okay.
And
Yeah,
just
so-
a couple of points following up on what Ed said about the property, the surplus property determination. It can be for property which is uneconomical, inefficient, which serves no useful function, and also is without commercial value or is obsolete. So I think that follows with these polls, with the energy efficiency, the condition, and everything. And I guess secondly, Eric, from the standpoint of the rates, are you using the FPL tariff sheet from January of 2022?
Yes, I am.
And that might be helpful to give to the board, Ed particularly, because that tells cost per pole, it gives the tiers, gives the whole 9 yards as to how they calculate that large number.
I
That's there.
believe we distributed that. If not, we'll get it to you. We'll get it to the board.
It's a fundamental fact. I can actually understand some of it. So it's not-
And remind me again, what's the style that we're using as a baseline?
Standard concrete.
Standard concrete.
Correct.
And that's,
Chelsea, what are those poles down Commerce Lakes East? They're newer. Are those concrete? or
They're concrete, yes.
They are concrete.
Yes.
So
'Cause those aren't bad
Yeah.
poles.
Currently, right now, we have 3 styles, I think. 2 in Griffin, because the ones in front of Silver Lake, they're,
Yep,
I don't
yep.
think they're 30, they're 40.
I think
And
they
then
are too.
I'm pretty sure they're 40 in front of Silver Lakes and Griffin.
Yep.
Then we have the ones by the school, which is the metal.
Which is the school's lights.
But I'm just saying
Yeah,
visually.
styles, yep.
And then on Gateway Boulevard, we
the
have concrete,
octagonal.
but I do believe
And
we
then
have
Stony Brook,
30 and 40 on Gateway Boulevard. I do not believe they're all 30.
Are there some
I
40s
don't
out there?
think they are.
Yeah.
either. I think they're 40 also.
Like that.
what about the ones down in Stony Brook?
I think
There's 10 fiberglass down in Stony Brook that we put in as part of the project when we did the breakaways, the breakaways. Going back to the poles, are you going 240 and going in the median, or is that still up in the air?
We'd be on both sides.
We'd be on both sides.
That's correct. The snapshot of the photometric there shows the locations spaced out
So
back and forth.
nothing's in the median, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And Aaron, part of it would be a 10-year service agreement with 5-year renewals.
That's correct.
That's, again, that's part of the tariff. I didn't know if the
All right,
board was aware of
next
that.
steps.
Okay.
So really, I think the direction that we need as FPL is basically what roads do you want to light with what equipment? And do you want to maintain the Lee County provided specifications? And then we can go ahead and internally we'll provide that layout photometric, just provided to the board in order to say, yes, this is what we approve for spacing and light levels based on.
I was gonna say, you have to have something to design these on, otherwise,
That's
pick a number.
So, and that, those specifications were provided to us, and we can work with staff just to make sure that that is the board's direction of the specs that they'd like to follow.
But those numbers do vary. If you look at Gateway Boulevard, you need street lighting and subsequent sidewalk lighting, correct?
From a foot candle standpoint, what a recommended foot candle reading would be for a pedestrian sidewalk compared
Right,
to.
there could be the difference between, I know you said there
Yes.
could be a single approach where you have backlighting, but I don't think that's viable in a lot of our locations. It would have to be a separate pole.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it is definitely 40 because Griffin,
Mhm.
there is no poles on the road. They are on one side only of the road.
Mhm.
And they are behind the sidewalk. So they're eliminating the sidewalk and then the road.
Yeah, I saw that. Some of them are
So
actually behind a wall.
Yeah, so those are different. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And in Pinewood, it's literally behind the hedges. And one thing for us to think about, given that the both schools on this side, we just installed the sidewalk, 6 years ago? They have no lighting on the side whatsoever. So I don't know if you are aware of that, but I think if we're gonna do it now in Griffin being phase 1, adding the lights starting at the sidewalk where we have it all the way down into the school. There is none.
And to answer the couple of those questions and the foot candle readings for a pedestrian sidewalk, what those criteria and standard would be different, obviously, than the roadway. If you wanted to set what a standard is that you'd like to follow for pedestrian, well, we could certainly assist in meeting that and set what the roadway standard is going to be. And in those areas, maybe there is overlap that we can meet both of those criteria. And in areas like you're explaining, where there's not, we're more than happy to expand the scope of the project into street and quote unquote pedestrian as well. We would just need that
I
direction.
mean, my point was, you may not need additional lamps in certain areas.
Yes.
Right, so.
I think on Griffin, we don't because there are hardly any trees. If anything, the oaks are on the side that there's no poles. So I agree with that. Carol, you have a question?
So basically, if I'm hearing what you guys want to say, you want staff to get together with FPL and bring back a proposal broken down into 3 segments.
With
Step
costs
1,
associated with
step 2,
each.
Step 3, the blues, then the oranges, and then the purples, right?
Correct.
and outline all the costs in there and also have a comparison with what we're spending now,
Correct.
Correct.
okay?
In order to come back with numbers that are not high-level budgetary, I had mentioned the $15,000 engineering deposit. We're kind of at that point.
Okay.
We would come back with the full package, as you're saying,
Right.
without kind of giving authorization to move to that stage of the
But to
engineering.
pay for that, to fund that.
That's correct.
And in the- in the
We'll come
fif-
back with exact numbers at that point in time and
And the
scope of project. yeah.
$15,000 is for total for all the three phases, or you're gonna be 15 for this phase, 15 for
Well-
second and third? So 45,000.
Well, the 15 was before we changed the scope, but we're
Eric,
good.
We're
We'll-
good with
we'll-
15? Okay, that's it,
We're gonna do one
okay.
phase
We'll-
with 3 parts.
We're good with it. We'll hold that.
Eric, we just approved a plan for $1 million.
Sure.
That included $1 million.
I
noticed-
heard that plan and I thought, cool, they're gonna get a lot of money that they can use towards other. It was interesting listening to that.
That's what I was wanting to know.
Yeah.
Is that $1 million a number that is, got a lot of fat in it?
Very high level based on the presentation here at 353 poles. I'm seeing 300,000 upfront underground installation costs for the new circuit and wiring. What is not accounted for in that is we would have the ability under our unregulated entity FPL services, would be a separate contract to review. We could kind of coordinate that for removal and disposal of all the existing facilities. Again, very high level budgetary numbers for the 274 that are out there. We're probably 300,000 there. So
Okay, what I
about
was trying to-
600 is kind of the number I think you're looking for.
That's what I was looking
Okay.
for.
That's a number I'm comfortable sharing today, and I'd
And-
like to come back with one that's
Okay.
lower.
And that's the
Great.
same number that has been tossed around
Good.
for, that was before we found out that we did not need photometrics. That's why we put in the million, because we thought we would have to pay our engineer cost to do photometrics and then permitting, et cetera. So,
All right, so you got the direction from the board, there's,
So-
we need
We
to
need
make
a
a
motion.
motion?
Need-
To approve the 15,000?
yes,
Six-
please.
Okay,
I so move.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thank
just,
you very
just
much.
to
Thanks, Eric.
back up what Carol said, the next meeting, we've established roughly $33 per pole cost right now for the new stuff. And we're gonna have the number of what we've been currently paying,
Right.
some average number for the last couple
Bob,
of
that's
years.
less capital. It's 33 less capital. That's operating costs per
Okay,
pole going forward.
and the operating cost should be less, I'm hoping, with LEDs, but we'll see. That's why
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to see that.
Well, I think the number he gave us was the 33 was with LED.
Okay.
We
Yeah,
will,
it is.
so we will bring back the
Okay.
review of our existing FPL bills for maybe the last year. Eric will start working on the proposal for, or we'll,
Yeah, as I had mentioned, the turnaround on that engineering design will be probably right around 12 weeks.
okay.
So from today, I would say we'll be looking probably late February, early March that we can reconvene.
So we'll work on the paperwork for that, and then
Great.
we'll bring back numbers next go around.
Yeah, and I guess what you may want to do as part of the action taken, in addition to authorizing the 15,000 for the contribution made of construction, or whatever documents that might need to be executed by Chelsea or the chair.
Yes.
To effectuate that.
Okay.
That's, I think that's implied in the motion, but just want to make sure.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you very much, board.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Eric.
it. And
Thank you.
You
Bob,
have sufficient direction?
Yes, ma'am.
Bob, separately, if you're still having concerns, please give me a call.
Will do.
All
Thanks.
right, thank you.
Put on his number.
Thank you, Eric.
It's in
Thank
there.
you.
All right,
His
so
email's in here.
item C,
Yes, do you want to take this one?
Oh, sure. Infomark's their agreement with them comes up April 1st, it expires, and we've been using them for quite a while now. And staff needs direction from the board as to if you would like us to stay with Infomark and have negotiations with them as far as holding prices through hopefully the end of fiscal 24, or if you would like us to compile something and move forward and put it out to bid. So if you don't want us to do anything, we don't need to do anything right now. If we need to go out to bid, we need to start on that right away.
I'm not enthused about going to bid right now. If we're
I
gonna do
agree.
anything,
Well,
I'd
my-
much rather have you buy the time with this. And then, as we have talked in the past, if we did anything, look at what opportunities we have to do it internally.
Well, I can expand on that, and that was one of the concerns why I'm very glad that you don't want to put it out to bid. The current go live date for having the accounting software in-house is February 1st. And so they have a lot of historical knowledge, and I really need their guidance, especially through as we transition over to having everything in-house. So if we're going to do anything, my recommendation would be to wait until after the end of fiscal 24.
And in that interim of time, we've got a lot on our plate with these bonds and things we've done,
Yes.
and bond validation
Yep.
and assessment roles. We're
And
not
Stephen
ready
and
for
Sonia
that
are
right
very
now.
familiar with the financials, so
No.
I would
So-
prefer to also keep
so
them on staff.
I'd make the motion to
Well, I got
accept.
it.
Oh, of course.
About it. Just, I'm not disagreeing. What do we pay now? What do we?
I think it's like
yearly?
86,000 a year,
80-some
80 something thousand a
Okay.
year. But every year, Stephen and I get together before we go to this contract, before we go into the agreement and go over the services that they're providing for us, as well as what they're,
Yeah, I read it
how
somewhere.
that will change. And some of this is going to change when we have the accounting software in house, because we'll be able to print our own checks. So there won't be a cost for that anymore. And I'm not sure what the impact on the accounts
Yeah, I know
payable
I read
side
it
of things will be. So there'll be some conversations we'll be having where we should be able to reduce some of the costs that
This
we're
buys
having.
us some time.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not unhappy. I'm very happy with the service we've been getting from them. They're very responsive. They've done everything that we've asked. And if I need anything, they produce it. So I don't have any concerns staying with them. I would prefer also that we do stay with them at least for the next couple of fiscal years so we get through all of this.
Do anything else?
Nope, that's
All
it.
right, so we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Good one.
Item D, landscaping.
Yep, so I believe at one of your last meetings, or all combined, the board approved recommended that staff move forward with the crepe myrtles along Gateway Boulevard to replace the oak trees that got removed a couple years ago. So Public Works got with Mainscape and got this proposal for the trees and I believe irrigation to be installed on the district's owned property from basically the emergency access road south to where the wall starts. We did reach out to Stony Brook to see if they'd be interested in some type of landscape easement like the board directed. Waiting to hear back from them. I know that they've had some personnel issues the last week, unfortunate. But this proposal is to install those. I think we were trying to get a timeline if the board approved when that would be. I know that there is some difficulty in getting the specific size, but it's part of our Mainscape contract that we have existing.
Yeah.
Did we look at the plans for North Haven such that the trees that we're going to plant won't be interfering with egress to their property?
We did not, because we don't know when that developer will be putting that in or
I thought they were
building it.
Okay, I thought they were going to be.
Well, they're in the permitting process, but when they go under construction is a different
I just
answer.
didn't want to see us put in a tree and then tear it down with a road.
Well, another thing I know that you mentioned about size, right now with everything being gone, I'm having a hard time to find anything that's over 10 feet tall. And it's not it's a twig. So if we can get this faster, so we can get better trees before they're all out, because then we'll be out of options.
Yeah, that's that. I think
it is. I mean,
I believe, Keith, if you can touch on the crepe myrtles about the size, we were trying to get the 50-gallon ones.
No, actually,
everything's like this little.
we're trying to, in our existing contract right now with Mainscape, we have 15-gallon
15
crepe myrtles. There is a shortage on crepe myrtles right now, so, but they're obligated to supply them, so we will.
15 gallons equates to
about a 6-foot tree.
6 foot.
They do grow fast though.
Okay.
And we the way we looked at it is the younger tree, the more life we get out of that tree because they're under power lines. So, we have to keep them at 15 foot, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, so.
And the total cost of this is the 17,632.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many trees is it?
It's 52 trees, 52 or 53 trees, and that includes the bubbler irrigation system that's going to be required to establish the trees.
And these don't have the big roots.
No,
These are nice
You
low
pick
roots.
up pretty quick.
That's what we said about those oaks 40 years ago. They didn't have big roots.
These are placed on the outside of the pathway though, so they won't be intrusive to the path nor the roadway. unless
So
they,
moved.
30 years maybe.
So one more quick question before we go to Keith. So 15 gallon, but do they say anything about the height?
A 15 gallon is typically 5 to 6 feet tall, right in
The
that
reason why I say that, because we did have issues with Mainscape before with our potted plants. Yes, they come in at 4 inches, but the plants were like an inch tall.
Yeah.
Like,
No, we're not
so,
gonna-
so-
we're not
and then,
gonna allow them to
and then
install
literally they were, oh, we switched the vases a week ago, but they were like, so I caution just going on, it's
Yeah.
15 gallon if at a minimum of 6 feet.
If they arrived on site like that, they
Okay,
would be turned away.
thank you. That's, all right, so
Take
we
them
have a
out of the
motion.
egg crate, put them in a big container.
That's exactly what they did, like 3 days before they moved it here. I was like, really? So we have a motion by Carol. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item E, North Haven Development Aerator Installation and Review.
Yep. Stephen Agapi is on. Stephen, do you want to take the lead on this item? If he's there,
I see him.
maybe, Stephen. So I believe we do have the developer here, and their engineer. So just to kind of give you a little background, I think I touched on this at the last board meeting, but North Haven is in review with the district, and we're dang near close to approving the permit. They're, as part of the permit criteria manual that was recently updated in, I think it was April or so, requires the installation of aerators on ponds. I know this, again, we're following the permit criteria manual, so one of the comments to the developer was that they needed to install these aerators. They had a difference of opinion, and so ultimately this board makes the final decision. And Rick, if alternative.
The requirement for the aerators, that's been a couple of years.
Oh, okay.
We refined it.
Okay.
Put in enhancements in it, like recommending half horsepower motors throughout, not have any
Specifics.
quarter, and 100 feet apart for the diffusers in the ponds. But the requirement for the aerator has been there for probably at least 5 years, because WCI did it for Casella, Prado, Pistoia,
Okay.
and part of Matarita.
Thank you.
I don't know that that's true for us, though. on
Well,
our
the
side.
manual covers everybody.
On our side. Well, let you go through it and
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I know why I think we're making a mistake.
Rick, you want to go ahead?
Sure. For the record, Rick Berlansky, civil engineer with Home Montez. And also with me is Mark Ombach. He's the representative. He's our developer. So, and my client. I think what we could do is maybe start off with the letter that was kind of summarizes this. And it actually has the rule, and it says all new, reconstructed, or modified wet retention systems or lakes need to get this aeration system. Now for our project, this lake was on this property. It was actually excavated by WCI when they were doing hidden lakes. The lake was excavated back in 2002, I believe. I provide the as-built. And then it was certified to the district. It was turned over to Gateway Services District to own and operate, been accepted by them back in 2012, I believe. So roughly 10 years it's been GSD's lake to own and operate and maintain. And you've actually signed those applications. I provided some of the back. The only problem was way back when WCI was landowner, they didn't transfer the property or deed the lake tract to GSD. We're doing that right now. We're going to prepare a sketch and legal and deed that tract to GSD, and we've been working with Tony on the agreement for doing that. As far as this project, though, which I went over that section where it says new, reconstructed, or modified, is that we're really not doing anything significant to this lake. What we're doing is there's an existing ditch that drains Gateway Boulevard, Stony Brook property, and bisects the property, and we're going to replace that and put a pipe in instead, which is a lot easier to maintain overall for GSD. And that cost is all going to be bared by the developer. He's going to go and put in the pipe, fill in the ditch, and replace that storm bypass system. As far as the lake itself, aside from that one area where we're going to fill in the ditch, we're not really doing anything to the lake. We're not excavating the lake. We're not changing the lake at all, except for that one small section. What we will be doing is the lake banks themselves have not been kept up over the years, so we're going to remove all the nuisance vegetation, regrade it, turf it, and get it back in better condition. So that's only lake bank work. So again, I don't believe that we're actually, the spirit of this rule is really to the activities that we're planning to do on this lake. And then keeping in mind that GST has actually been owning and operating, or should have, not necessarily owning it, but they've been the operation and maintenance entity, and they actually accepted it over these past 20 years dealing with this previous development. I can tell you probably all this excavation material probably was used to use for fill for hidden links. So it's not like this developer excavated the lake and has actually used the material and as there was that benefit. They're turning over this lake. It's about 7.5 acres of lake on this property. Now, if they were going to build a lake that they would need for their development, it would only have to be like 3/4 of an acre, maybe an acre at the most. So you can see that you're getting a lot more lake, which is for the entire community, and that's actually being used by the community right now for stormwater management. And it's a vital connection for Stony Brook. So you're getting all these nutrients from all these other developments into this lake area, aside from just this developer. So there's a common interest to provide the aeration, but I believe it's unfair that this developer has to bear all that responsibility, which is why we're here to appeal that to you.
I think if Rick, you're done, I think Stephen, are you there? It shows.
He said he's on, but no.
Yeah.
Hold on. See if I can unmute it.
What are you trying to get him? Are there any other owners, Rick, on 130? As you can see on the, go back to the aerial photos, Laura, please. That lake is huge.
Yes.
Who own, let's look it down at that south end on the backside of Hidden Links, coming back by the golf course. Who owns that little deal? Is that? I don't
The
think
lake
that's-
itself is not owned by Hidden Links, but the lake maintenance areas along the lake bank, that is within Hidden Links
No,
lots.
my question is, if you look at that pond and you go to Lipa, it'll have sections of who owns parts of it, like WCI or the country club or whatever. That property there that we're talking about doing this development, North Haven, it doesn't own the entire perimeter or the entire surface area of 130. Is that correct?
Can I show you on the screen?
Yeah, I can't.
I think you can see the yellow lines barely. It's north-south, and I think what you're talking about, this lake has two segments to it, I think is what you're trying to say.
To me, it's 130, that is pond 130, whether you're on the north side, east side, west side, or south side. That's all 130. My question is, I think it's got multiple ownership.
Right here. I think, right, if you look at, there's a yellow line right here.
Where do you, I don't.
If you're looking at that arrow.
I don't see a yellow. Of course, I don't see yellow either. Yeah, Lipa would help. My point is I think I'm playing into what you're saying is that there's multiple owners on this thing. That's still not showing Lipa.
We're getting there.
I'm getting there. I'm doing it on the screen.
Steven, oh, he went out. Okay.
Why is it not showing up on this one?
Wait a minute, she's getting it on the screen over here,
I'm pulling it up on the separate screen
so we can all see it.
Yeah, that's land. It's not water.
No,
Click on the water. Say, that's my problem. They don't know it.
All right, Steven, are you there?
Hey, yeah, can you guys hear me this time?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I've been following along, and I think everyone's up to speed with it. So,
Wait, if we can get this on the screen, we can all see it.
Yeah.
Steven, give us just a second. We're trying to pull this up on Leap because Mr. Tinkle had a question about the ownership of the pond.
It's owned by three. think everybody's gonna find out.
Yeah, so this developer doesn't own the entire portion of that lake. It turns into the flowway and it's owned by Gateway for most of it.
You were getting there.
This right here is the future plantation.
Okay, now we got it.
All right, so click this one. Nope, this one.
I think we're gonna find 3 owners.
So we have Gateway Services as part of this one, and then click this one. This is the developer who's here today, and then what's this one?
Country Club.
That's the club at Gateway, and then if you click this one, yeah.
But the maintenance responsibility is us for everything.
City of Fort Myers.
Yeah, so there's multiple owners.
Where did you see City of Fort Myers?
Right here.
See, it's highlighted in
But that's
blue.
not on Lake 130.
There's a portion of it.
I don't think that's Lake 130. That's Flowway.
Correct.
Then
That's
there's not,
flowway.
then they're not an owner at all then.
That's
It's part of
Flowway.
system
Now we're back
3.
to having 3.
Yeah, the issue is that it's got multiple owners. And the fact that it's got one maintainer, and that's us.
Okay.
So can we let Stephen, just kind of go on this?
Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Sorry about that. I had some technical difficulties there, but I was listening along, and I think everyone understands the basis of the discussion here. Staff, legal counsel, and engineering, we believe in an interpretation of the PCM. It may be a liberal interpretation of it, but we believe that this development could constitute the necessity for aeration for this portion of the lake. We'll let the board to decide, but that's our opinion right now.
Yeah, I think, and I think the operative portion of it is, in looking at the memo that Stephen did, and I concur with it, part of it was my opinion, that the lake is proposed to be modified as part of the project. Now, whether the developer is arguing it's not substantial and material, the modifications are such that, in our opinion, it qualifies, because there's all new reconstructed or modified wet retention systems. And Stephen has outlined the 5 reasons that indicate that it's proposed to be modified as part of this project, and which, in my opinion, also would support application of that rule requiring new constructed or modified wet retention systems to provide aeration. You have new discharge coming in, you have a new type of discharge, you have additional outfall, and then you have the downspout. So I think, all of those count, and Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, all those add up to modification of the wet retention system lakes.
Correct.
Me as an engineer.
Okay, I agree with what Steven said, and I guess I would, as a compromise in sympathy what Ed is saying, just the outline that's portioned, if you can put that picture back up, just the outline that is in blue, or whatever color this is, turquoise, let them do that portion of it, but forget the other portions that currently exist that may be somebody else's, because we're going to be doing it on our dime. So let the developer put in for his piece of it and what you see in front of you, and then the rest of it, we'll just incorporate at some future time.
Bob, let me throw a monkey in the wrench here. Go to pond 119. Where were you all when we did 119?
What are you talking about?
Go to pond 119.
We don't have that available.
You mean 120 in front of Arborwood?
You're on LIPA, scroll up. It's Arborwood. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same exact deal. They aren't doing nothing. Why aren't they doing it? Exact same deal. I don't understand.
So Arborwood's not putting in aeration?
No, there's no aeration there. None.
There.
It's exact same.
Well, if
deal
they
as
were
this.
permitted under the criteria, man, we should have held them to it. Who approved it?
That's my point.
When
This
were
deal
they-
of picking
Because
and
an error was
choosing,
made before, there's no reason to
I guess the
continue it.
question, was Arborwood approved before June of 2022?
Oh, hell yeah. Way before. Go on up, at a little bit up, Laura. Right there on the right, that pond, no, those, not the 2 ponds in the middle. Talking about the pond that's just exactly the same scenario that we have here. There is a pond bordering it all the way from the 13th tee down to the 11th green. There should be, and that doesn't have 1 ounce of aeration in it.
That doesn't make it right, Ed.
Well, it sure as hell, you don't pick and choose though, Bob.
Well, we got the manual, we have a permit, they have to require it, we have to honor it.
I'm trying to figure out what happened.
Okay. I can't answer for what happened in the past, but I'm looking at what's
I
here.
don't, I don't believe those things that were cited in Stephen's letter. We agree most of the time, but I don't agree with him on this one. I don't think those stand the test for modifications to the bond. Just don't see that.
The 5 items that he
Yeah,
listed,
I just
you don't
don't see
agree with
that.
any of them?
No. I don't see those as, first of all, the water that was on that land that fell from the skies is the same water that's going to be there to begin with. So I'm not buying that. The water that's predominantly coming in there is coming from acreage that's not included in their acreage of development. If you're going to do anything, go back and prorate that, and then that makes this thing a nightmare trying to do that
We're not
calculation.
talking about that much money.
Then
Do you want to come to the, do you want to come into,
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah, this is Mark Ambeck, MA Realty of Florida. I'm the owner of the property and developer. And this is like a $50,000 item to go in there and study everything that has to be done, put this in for, just like you said, this parcel is there. The water that hits there and goes into the lake is being treated as part of that already. When the water, we develop this parcel, we treat the water before it goes in. So there's no more water from this parcel going in there. The lake itself is designed for multiple acres, not just this. As Rick said, we need 3/4 of an acre for us. This is part of a whole system that Stony Brook is taking through, Hidden Lakes is using, everyone else is using at a much larger rate than we are for this little piece of land. The district owns this and maintains it. All we're doing is nothing to the lake. What we're doing on our own property, not part of the lake, is enclosing the transfer of water, which is actually a savings to the district. And that's going to cost me probably close to $500,000, $300,000 to $500,000 for that pipe. So I'm contributing a lot. I'm giving the land as opposed to selling it, because if I'm creating all this in theory, well, why couldn't I go ahead and fill some in and build some more out there? You know, I'm not doing that, but I'm just saying, you know, it's already been maintained by the district. It's just never deeded over. So to impose this on this small property, there is no more water going in there. The lake is not being reshaped out there. Our application was made in April. It's taken an unbelievable amount of time to go through a very small, simple process to go through to get approved.
We put in a lot of aeration as communities here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you that we never got near $50,000 to put something into this. I don't know what all you're considering, but to buy compressor cabinets and to put it in.
Because we're having to go ahead and figure out all the calculations that are needed in this, because there's multiple properties that are using this, Stony Brook, Hidden, all these other properties.
But no, I'm not interested in what the
Yeah, I agree with that, because an aeration, each one, it's about $8,000.
Yeah, we're just putting aeration in this piece of a pond. And that's something to our benefit, because it keeps the pond healthier, you know.
I understand.
You understand all that. But we're not talking about everybody that's contributing a gallon of water. But you're building something there on the pond, and the permit criteria says, because of that, you're now responsible for it.
But I'm not changing what's already been there.
Well,
you have the same area.
Well, you're changing it because you're building on it.
Well, no, but I treat the water before it goes in.
That's a different issue entirely. Nobody's saying that you're not treating the water.
Right. Now,
you have the responsibility when you bought the land now, or to get it permitted, to put in the aeration. I agree with Tetra Tech. That's one person's opinion. Let's go and vote.
If we do, then we're going back and looking at every pond then. You can't
Hey,
pick and choose what
I don't
we've
have a
done.
problem with that. This isn't picking and choosing. This is the one that's before us.
I
And
think the
how
issue
about
is,
the other half? Who figures out how much of the pond I'm responsible? What's the other person? How much water? How
Whatever's
do you
in that
figure?
blue line right now.
All right, let's call for a motion on this then.
Okay. I'll make a motion. We support the Tetra Tech report.
Do I have a second on that? I'll second for discussion. Want to call the vote? All right. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
nay.
Aye.
Okay, we're going to do that. I'm going to make the motion then that we're going ahead and go back 3-4 years, and I want every pond that's been done, we're going to evaluate and go to them, and they got to pay for all the aeration.
Hey, Ed Tinkle. This is Stephen again. Just to clarify on Lake 130 at Arborwood, the interior lakes did get aeration, but that exterior lake did not.
Doesn't have anything to do with it, Stephen. Doesn't have anything to do with it.
Finish it.
Hold on. The permit criteria manual at the time, the language was different, and it said new lakes. It didn't mention modifications or changes to lakes.
Yeah, it's not an, yeah, I totally agree. It's not a new lake.
Right.
It's
So
exactly
the
the same
permit
thing.
criteria manual was different back in, 2020 when it was permitted.
What he's saying is the word new, reconstructed, or modified was not the old language.
Every,
It is the new language.
every pond, everything that applies to this pond applies to 130.
No, it didn't.
I'm sorry,
because he
119.
just said it,
119.
because they
Right,
weren't.
but it was permitted before that language was adopted.
When was the language adopted?
In June,
Of this year?
I believe so, right, Stephen?
Yes.
Yes.
What if our application is submitted? Because we're not doing anything to the lake.
Come to
If you want
the
to come
mic.
to the podium, so just so we can.
We want to make sure we get you on record.
Mark Amback again. What if our application was made in April? Are we not grandfathered in or held to the rules at the time of application submittal?
My opinion is no. We're, at the time that we finalize a review and provide the approval.
All right, so let's move on to the last item, which is the crane truck replacement.
Yes, at the last board meeting, the board verbally approved the replacement of the crane truck. So we said that we would bring this back for your ratification. So this is that item.
All right.
How many vehicles have we purchased this year? I saw something that told me we had 7. This is the 7th vehicle in calendar year 22. You guys had a chart. I don't have it with me. I'll try to find it.
We can pull
So
that up.
this is that crane truck that
Kenny requested, yes.
the one that we left and it was.
We've approved this.
We approved it,
Yes.
yeah.
It's a replacement. It's not an additional vehicle. It's replacing
what I
our
thought.
current crane.
That's
And
what I
then we're
thought.
gonna sell the other one and.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is the
Yeah.
7th vehicle we've purchased this year.
We may not get it until the end of the fiscal year, so it's because the wait time is so long, it's very possible that it won't even hit the budget until fiscal '24.
Bob, when we get the capital reserve study, there'll be just one page on trucks. Vehicles.
All right, so I need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, 3-1. No, 3-1.
3-1.
All right, so future board business, agenda management.
You want to do 13?
No, just 12 and 13.
Oh, sorry.
13, Chelsea first.
In an effort to save time and me to get to birthday dinner,
I'm
I
ready.
don't have anything.
She's shooting for 5:30, so you better go quick.
Tim is gonna be here in a minute, y'all know.
Is Steven still on the line? I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
So you're all done with yours?
Yes.
Briefly, from my perspective, as I mentioned, I had individual conversations. The district has been served with a lawsuit by Mr. Michael Whitfield. And at this time, the district has also retained John Potanovic, labor law, employment law attorney, works with Suzanne Boy, Agnew Potanovic, with regards to representing the district in this matter. We're requesting that on the December 15th board meeting, that the board conduct a closed door session to discuss that pending litigation. It's styled Michael Whitfield versus Gateway Services Community Development District in the United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida, as we need advice concerning that pending litigation. And Chelsea, an hour, I think, is that what we talked
Yes.
about?
Yes.
And to the board's discretion as to when they want to have it, before the meeting or later in the meeting,
Before.
like 2 o'clock.
I would say 2 o'clock, just how we had it.
We'll make
today.
sure to lock doors and
What,
We even changed the lock around so you could lock the door from the inside.
Seriously?
Yes.
where was the, where was this filed at?
Federal court.
Where at?
Here, Fort Myers.
Oh, in Fort Myers, okay.
Yeah, so with that, we'd like to have the board authorize and just approve by motion, setting a closed door session involving that pending litigation for December 15th in the boardroom,
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock.
PM for 1 hour.
Okay, do I have that motion?
So moved.
A
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
thank you.
Will we be getting advanced information on that? I don't know how you do it
We'll
because it
work-
can't be in the board book.
Yeah, we'll work with Mr. Potanovic, Chelsea, and staff on that.
Yeah, because I don't want to come to that meeting and have to do a speed reading.
Understood.
Would you print out and pick it up at the office? maybe?
We might just have one-on-one briefings beforehand. We'll talk about that.
Okay. We'll touch
That-
base
that'd
with
probably
you
be the easiest,
individually.
quite frankly.
Yeah. Okay.
So the 15th is on for a meeting then.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what you just approved. Yeah.
I'll give you a copy later if you want. It's public record. I don't want to have a discussion here.
He's learned.
Uh, Motion was approved?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I want to make sure. Thank you.
Tony, do you have anything else?
No, ma'am.
All
Sorry,
right.
not to take over your meeting, Flavia.
Future board business.
So I'm gonna, again, we have agenda management in front of you. Again, if you have items that you'd like us to work on or bring back at a future board meeting, please, please, please mention them right now. I know Mr. Tinkle and I spoke today. There's some concern for urgency on things, and I know Mr. Gephardt and I have spoken about some items of urgency. If you have something that comes up, please mention it. We'll get it on this. We'll get working on it. We'll get it scheduled for a future board date sooner than later, or at the board's discretion when you'd like to see it, depending on your workload. Yes, ma'am.
Avila Circle in Pelican Preserve.
Yes.
This board already approved the contract for reconstruction. We already approved the engineering. They've done the soil borings, but I haven't heard back any report as to what.
Okay.
January 23 to start. Yeah. That was in the letter.
Hey.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Keith, you just want to answer
Sure.
that real quick?
We received the final plans this week and I've sent out the plans for bid. So we're looking at hopefully starting construction the
And
first of
how
the year.
did the road bed come out?
It actually was good. Yeah, there was no road failure. So
Oh, good.
it's just a mill and resurface.
Okay.
So this board will see that contract for award at the
Probably early January. I have bids due on the 9th of December. So hopefully I'll bring it to the board in the first of the
The
year.
reason why I'm asking about the
second
road
meeting in
bed
December.
is because this is the first road that PPAC is recommending that we do. And it's probably more than 20 years old, the road. So it's kind of interesting to know whether that road bed is good underneath there as we get to the next one, because I'm sure PPAC will be dealing with all the other roads as they come.
What do
and
you do,
start to
resurfacing?
deteriorate.
Resurfacing?
Mill and grind.
Each
Mill and grind.
Did you take core samples?
Yes,
That's
But
what.
the core samples were okay.
We shouldn't really use these core samples as the basis
The
for
litmus
all
test.
others.
Keep in mind,
Because
those
they
are
were
as
all
loose
built
as a
at different
goose.
times. They were
You
all
can have
built
a
at different
good
times.
spot here
Yeah.
and the next 2 feet away,
Oh, really?
it'd be a hole of a hole.
The other
Oops.
problem with this, Carol, and I was just made aware of this today and discussed it with Phil, is heretofore, PPAC was of the impression, as was I, that every road in the community had been surveyed by Tetra Tech. And we have found out today that that was not the case. There was a sampling of 3 or 4 communities, and Avila was the one that came.
You better have when you're doing it, have a contingency, because I guarantee you'll be hitting places where you didn't get the asphalt
Well,
thicknesses.
absolutely. But going forward to this coming PPAC meeting next week, there will be a proposal by Tetra Tech and a methodology to how to check things in the future. Because I think the intent of PPAC was they wanted to know the condition of the roads.
We also had to make a last minute change in the size of the width, I guess, of the panels and the road.
This is a can of worms, and we're just starting to get into it. While you're still
Well,
on, Steve.
But the reason it's important to us is that they're going to kind of use this road as an idea as to how much money going into the future they're going to have to put in reserves to redo all their roads.
Because it's going to be
at some
considerable.
point in time. And so
It's gonna
that's
vary.
why this,
If that
each
works,
of
let
these
me know.
steps is so important to us.
Lots of luck. If that works, let me know.
This is not a cheap project. This is, again, the can of
And
worms.
Carol, if you'll notice on the screen, you'll see the Public Works and Parks and Rec, and he does have the Avila Road resurfacing, and that's scheduled for the 119 meeting.
Oh, okay.
So this is where, on top of this, this is where future board business that staff are working on, that the board will be asking the board to take action or direction on.
Okay.
At the second meeting of each month is when we put together our monthly reports, and that goes into very fine detail of everything that we had done the previous month. So this at this point right now for this agenda management and future board business, this gives the opportunity of the board members to mention of any items that you'd like for staff to work on and get consensus from the board that yes, everybody agrees you'd like staff to work on.
is it possible at this point then to ask that maybe the attorney work on something? Is
This is future board business.
okay?
In addition to what Bob has me working on, I'm just kidding.
Yes, I don't know what Bob's got you working
Well,
on.
the
so-
PPAC has me working on it, actually. But
Okay.
Bob is my nudger.
Okay,
The official-
there-
Which is
there-
okay.
At the intersection of Tree Line and Colonial, there are two Pelican Preserve monuments, big monuments. And they are there because that was the original entrance into Pelican Preserve. Tree Line didn't go through, that was the original entrance. There has been some discussion, and I'll be honest, I'm the one that was discussing it, as to whether it would be possible to sell those two properties, because they really don't serve the purpose of which, it's not the entrance into Pelican Preserve any longer. You enter off of Tree Line, and that's the, by light, that's the more official entrance. And so, but the subject came up, and what I'd like to ask you to do is, could you research to see if there are any dedications or easements or anything that would prevent the sale of that property? I don't
That's City
know.
of Fort Myers,
Those,
right?
those are shown on LIPA as our property.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Oh, they are.
They are.
They are totally.
Yeah, I think Laura and or
CDD
Chelsea had,
property.
Laura and Chelsea had given me heads
I
up
gave you a heads up.
Oh, okay.
about your concern. I had some initial bullet point thoughts about that.
Well, before we go further down the thing and talk about maybe making them surplus and all that sort of stuff, which there are a lot of hoops, there might be something on there that the developer put on years ago that we couldn't sell anyway.
Yeah, I can
Precludes
check,
anything,
and I can check, and part of it is my initial, again, I hadn't gone back and looked at everything, subject to getting some direction, was that my recollection was those were paid for with the bond proceeds for the original Sun City Center bonds. And at times when you have bond issuances, there's requirements or covenants against disposing of certain property, absent getting bondholder approval. Now, here we are 19 years down the road, the remaining balance of the bonds is very low. So, and the value of that property, those signs relative to the overall project may be one where we can talk with bond counsel about, number one, do we need to get approval? Number two, if the board is so inclined, make a determination if it's possible that those are surplus. Then the question is what becomes, because they're funny shaped. I mean, they're kind of.
Yeah.
They're not only just easement
It's fee
type
simple.
deals, they're big pieces of property.
Yeah, they're at the corners.
Yeah, they're at the corners.
They're about half an acre each.
That's right.
So
Kind
that,
of, sort of.
so I can do that initial research. I'll go back and look at the original offering memorandum and bond covenants and maybe get with bond counsel, is the same counsel I think we have today.
Well, before we go marching down this road, I would just like to know, could they even be sold?
Okay, so
Again, those are some of the questions we'd have to answer first before being able to provide that opinion.
we'll
They have
add
to
that
be-
to it.
They have to be declared surplus, whether or not the covenants would
Oh,
allow
yeah.
those to be disposed of or not.
And
But
part of the whole thought
declarations and
process,
covenants and everything is, if there's something on there now, then we just forget about it.
plus it costs quite a bit to maintain them.
Yeah, and by the way,
You know.
government property, covenants and restrictions don't apply to property acquired for governmental purposes. So.
Yeah.
we're-
And nothing would happen beyond this inquiry without, the whole community
Well, that's what we
opining.
understand. So this is
Yes.
its initial
Yeah,
query.
just throw it out,
Go ahead,
see
Chelsea.
what sticks to the
Would
Go
wall.
ahead, Chelsea.
the
So-
owner of that commercial property take those over?
We don't know. That's what.
We don't know
So
that.
can
Go ahead, Chelsea.
we get consensus from the board to direct Tony to look into this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Anything else to add? No? Go ahead.
Well, not to that, but I want to thank everyone for all the efforts on the construction road. It is now, is it
Looking good.
completed? I know it's,
The road is paved. There's ancillary items, the fencing and electrical, but the road itself is paved.
yeah, so,
Can I have a key card?
I mean,
There's no key card.
consider that, yeah, you're not going to get a key card. Considering this has been 2 years in the making. Bill gets the first, no,
He got
Bill,
one.
Carol Brokey gets the first. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for all the effort and work that's gone into that because it has been.
Tell me that when we're done with it.
Almost
Please.
3 years to the
Yeah.
date.
Well, I can remember the meeting. It was one of my very first
Yeah.
meetings.
How about the gate?
Yeah.
Oh, I like
Okay.
the gates. I like the gates. Well, the one in Prado is, unless somebody took it.
Okay, so guys, in,
It'll be the same as the one on Prado.
Yeah, the Prado gate is there.
all right,
Are there any additional items that anybody would like to add to this or reprioritize?
Well, I got some things that I gave you and I'll wait till I.
Are we going to have any more? Because I thought today we were going to have some discussion about the new admin building, location and all that stuff, so as to talk about soils borings.
No, there's been, well, on top of Thanksgiving, there's been illnesses going around all offices. So we'll try to get that to you guys as soon as we can.
And then the other thing is, I didn't bring it in the other meeting, but the budget for that building went substantially up. Do we have a new revised cost estimate for the admin
They
building?
haven't done any work on it. They've been hit with sickness like everybody else.
all right. All right, President's Council meeting.
I don't know what that
Went
is.
real good.
Is it just a recap of? what we had?
Click it.
I was going to send you
Who's there?
a breakdown of our Gateway Greens. We've got all of our budgets, which would be along the line of what that one gentleman wanted. The only thing that we don't have that a lot of communities have would be amenities, and you can add that and then show the number of what the cost is and show the number of units that are paying. And then you can come up with a cost per unit for every one of those.
Oh, to
That's
share,
what-
to pass
share
along.
to share.
Okay.
So I'll get something to you.
Okay.
Because I didn't know who the
I
gentleman
think-
was that came.
I believe that was Gary Lippold from Stony Brook. At the very end, you're talking about who spoke up. That was Gary. So if you do, I'll get that to all of the HOAs. So just to recap, we've already followed up on all of the items that were asked at the President's Council. You'll see some social media posts going out soon. Last reminder, because I'm trying to get out of here to go to birthday dinner. Winterfest is Saturday from 6 to 10. We could always use volunteers. I will be there. Please dress up in your ugly sweater.
I may volunteer then. So
Come
go.
on down.
Okay, sweater, Florida.
Yeah, touche.
A short sleeve sweater.
But please stop by from 6 to 10. It's
Okay.
going to be a good family event.
I'll open up to supervisor's comment. I'll start with Bob.
I have nothing more than my regular ongoing list is cell papers and, lighting and installation, everything. I gave it to Chelsea.
We're going to follow up with him
For
tomorrow.
brevity's purposes for this meeting, I'll wait till I get the reply.
All right. Carol?
Nope.
All right, Ed?
Welcome on board.
Oh.
Interesting first meeting and
It was.
congratulations and
Only 4 hours.
looking forward to it.
Now I gotta find out how I get a phone book so I can put it on my chair.
We'll get you set up next
All
go
right, and I
around.
just, again, the same as Ed, I want to welcome Carol. Looking forward to working all together and all the many projects we have on the table.
Yes.
Many.
All right.
projects.
Okay, and
Move to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.